All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the free Assange online vigil series. My name is Taylor Hudak, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Andrew Smith, Christy Doff, and Steve Poikinen. So this is our second episode of the new year of 2020. We do have some special plans for 2020, of course, and we will be getting into that as the show progresses, probably in the second half. But before we get into all of that, and especially before we discuss the escalating tensions with Iran, just some stats for you guys. As of today, it is day 3,319 days of arbitrary detention for Julian Assange and for whistleblower Chelsea Manning. Today is 301 days in jail, and she is now up to $192,000 in fines. So she is almost at $200,000 in fines, guys. Remember, every single day that she refuses to testify before the grand jury investigating WikiLeaks, she is being fined $1,000. So keep them in mind. And if you are able to, contributing to both of their defense funds is extremely helpful. So before we get into some news concerning Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, we of course are going to talk about the escalating tensions with Iran, between the United States and Iran. But before we get to all of that, I want to introduce to you our guest this evening. And I also had the pleasure of meeting him on Saturday, actually, at the No War with Iran LA protest. Craig Pasta Jardula joins us with the Convo Couch. Craig, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Taylor. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too. So maybe just to recap a little bit about what took place on Saturday. I know that you touched on it on the Convo Couch with Fiorella, but what was your perspective on the rally on Saturday? I know we got to speak for a little bit about how there was a lot of anger towards Trump and the Trump administration, which is understandable. However, I would argue that perhaps this is a much larger issue and that there are more people and more entities to blame than just President Trump.
Yeah, and first off, I just want to say thank you for doing what you guys do over here. This is an important issue, and our conversation we had on at the rally. We'll be putting it out on Friday. You had a lot to say, but how you tied it into everything that's going on, with Julian Assange, and so we'll be dropping that on Friday. But thank you guys for all you do because I believe strongly in my civil liberties, and yeah, the stranglehold we have on us now, it's something scary. As pertaining to the rally, and what's going on today, geez, it's it's a little overbearing. We've been doing show after show, bringing breaking news, what's going on in that area. But I mean, it's just an overall scary things, and it's some of the it's a lot of the things that are pushed to the side when it comes to our discourse out there, when it comes to our civil liberties, and actually our foreign policy. I'd like to see a bigger crowd than we saw out there that last weekend. But yeah, the war with this, I think it's time that as a group, as a nation, we start saying, what is our foreign policy like? Why are we even in the Middle East, and why are we at war with Iran? So, the overall sentiment was, it's something scary that what's going on, but I'm glad we're bringing voices to the table, and I thank you guys and all you do. So, yeah, that is the big question. Why are we still there? Why do we have the foreign policy we have?
Absolutely.
It's a for-profit foreign policy, like plain and simple. All it's about is exploiting money and resources out of these areas and then distributing amongst the largest U.S. corporations and then getting the rich richer. Like you look at Dick Cheney and Halliburton and what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan directly following the invasions and how they made trillions of dollars because they would throw away an entire van when a wheel busted. So it's just the gross exploitation of the U.S. taxpayers. That's basically our foreign policy. Fight to the last dead American to protect Saudi territory and Israeli interests.
there's there's really no arguing that. We've got a long and storied history in Iran, though. We as far back as 1953 started playing destabilization and overthrow in Iran, which led to 26 years of brutality, targeting mainly the left, like the secular left, um, trade unionists, workers of all stripes, activists, anarchists. There was a vibrant contingent of the secular left in Iran leading up to the overthrow. And for the better part of 3 decades, um, the Shah and his regime just rained down brutality on the left, to the point where in 1979, when he was ousted, what we had was, or what Iran had, was no left to speak of. There were people who complied with a authoritarian right-leaning theocracy who kind of spoke against it, but always towed the line, remarkably similar to what we have going on here in the States, if you're following me at all. In the 80s, of course, we had Iran Contra. We labeled Iran a state sponsor of terrorism. We shot down an Iranian airliner in 1988, murdering 290 people. I mean, and this is all leading up to the war in Iraq, where we were basically holding proxy wars in and around Iran. So when we started doubling down on placing our military bases there, we now have over 40 basically surrounding Iran. Of course, in 2005, you've got Wesley Clark talking about the 7 countries slated for destabilization and overthrow, Iran being the last one named off on that. I mean, there's just decades and decades and decades of blatant US interference in terms of the Iranian people trying to have their own agency. And it's a theocracy largely because of our overall, I don't know, attitude, overthrow, posturing, what have you. Craig, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or not, but I'd like to hear them if you do.
Well, I mean, as I'm listening to everything, and I'm a history guy, I'm a foreign policy guy, and I love to always talk about, and I'm echoing the first CIA regime change plan was in '53 when it comes to Mossadegh, and at that particular time, we know it was probably more than anything a resource extraction. The Anglo-Saxon Persian oil company that has now become BP convinced the elites and the oligarchs to go to the president at the time and overthrow Mossadegh and put in the Shah. Why? Because he was going to nationalize his oil and we wanted to take it over. But today it just seems like there's a lot more screwery. I wanted to use the effery word, but today, and it really ties into, with Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, why they put him, behind bars. It's because it's more about control today too, as well. I think they want to crush any ideology of anything social wise, a social entity, a country that gives to its own people, that uses the resources to let people, live a satisfying life. Anything like that, we have to demonize, we have to crush, we have to get rid of for our own elite's interest. So, yeah, I mean, we look back at the Mossadegh time. I think it's some type of evolvement of actually more of a grip, of more control. Even today, today's show, we had a 75-minute show today. Well, YouTube informed us that they put a copyright infringement on it. Not only that, they won't let us repost our stream. So more and more, they're trying to silence the voices out there, whatnot, keep everybody quiet. I mean, you guys are on this whole, movement to really let people, know what's going on. But, it does seem to be the next stage of the elites, or the next stage of the oligarchs and what they're trying to do is pertaining to our foreign policy. And we're seeing it played out in Iran. I mean, I'm wondering from all you guys, doesn't it seem a little bit strange last night that the retaliation was no casualties whatsoever? It almost kind of like made me think of when we attacked Syria last time, there was no casualties on that base. It's like, are the elites tipping each other off little by little? And at the same time, when we have people trying to bring truth to life, a la Julian Assange, they're being put behind bars.
This is actually something we talked about in like our personal chat thread today, about how there was literally no U.S. troops killed. Like, it was the most strategic retaliation that Iran could have done, because if they didn't hit a parking lot, they were killing somebody.
Yeah.
And that's more or less what they aimed for. And it's the fact that it's more or less them flexing to say like, hey, we have the ability to hit as pinpoint as you guys do, and we don't have to kill someone to show you that we can do it.
So
You know, I wish I can buy that, because still, to me, I don't know how you sell that as a leader and stuff. Listen, you don't have to kill people to do it, but why not take out a desalination plant, you know, in Saudi Arabia? Why not do something in Bahrain? You know, you have all these other proxies, and, you know, you can go for the low hanging fruit and still get away with it. But that's why it makes me think that even in situations this, when it comes to our foreign policy, we don't know. And guess what? When they put people like Julian Assange behind bars, when they put Chelsea Manning behind bars, we're getting further away from the truth and further away from transparency. So, I mean, I'm not saying that isn't a possibility, my man, but
did you hear about the letter that came out in Afghanistan?
Was that the one that said that they were
from the general that said they were going to pull the troops out? The like unsigned letter that got released from the government into some Iraqi television station. Ron Paul covered it, and so did Jamal and Nico.
You know, I did not see that today. I was all over the place, but
yeah,
no, I
there
did
was
not. I'd like to look into that.
A leaked letter that came from the Iraqi government that said we were planning on pulling our troops out of Iraq completely to put them in more strategic locations throughout the region. And it was unsigned, and the Pentagon actually had to step in and say, no, that letter shouldn't have been released. It is a letter from us, but it wasn't supposed to have gotten out.
All right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. I mean, how many rabbit holes can we go down right now?
Right.
I even heard that after the attack on Soleimani, that there was a backdoor letter, I believe Max Blumenthal reported on Donald Trump reaching out to the Iranians, pretty much saying, please don't come back and attack us, you know, whatnot. So, I mean, it's, you know, this is why we need our civil liberties. It's our number one issue. Hey, you want Medicare for all? That's cool. You want a Green New Deal? That's cool. But if we don't have our civil liberties, amendment number one, then we don't have anything, because they can always hide things. They're working behind closed doors in the dark. And it removes us from a society of really having control over our government.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Julian Assange said, quote, if wars can be started by lies, they can be, peace can be started by truth, or something along those lines. I continue to butcher this quote, but that is the gist of what he said. And what he means by that specifically, of course, is that access to truthful information is one of the best ways to prevent wars and prevent escalating tension. So when I hear him say things like this, it reiterates to me that the powerful and the elite are extremely fearful of him and his work through WikiLeaks. Now, there's a video that's been floating around. I believe I did send it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but I sent it to my co-host as well, where Julian Assange basically predicted tensions with Iran. He has this unique ability to predict these things that are happening in the world years before they happen. He's really, really intelligent with that. So I don't know if you were able to see that, but basically what he was saying was that we're typically lied our way into war. And then he also made the great point to say that Hollywood and the entertainment industry is often used to help manufacture that consent.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, right off the bat, Assange, you know, he is grounded and rooted in truth, because he gets to see what the everyday average American doesn't get to see, right? So that's why his predictions are a little bit more online, because when you see the truth, like you said, you get a lot more perspective, you get a lot more knowledge of what's going on, and you can make a great prediction from the truth. Today's video of mine that is not allowed to be suppressed, and we had to contact our lawyer. In fact, it's not allowed to be put up. It was suppressed, excuse me for stepping on my words. We talked about Ricky Gervais and what he did, calling out Hollywood. I know I'm a new fan of Ricky Gervais or however you want to see it. I'm going to be part of the fan club, because what he did, even though he says it was just jokes, it was rooted in a lot of truth. And yes, let me tell you something. That's the third arm. You talk about the military-industrial complex, the establishment and the elites trying to control, you know, information, control thoughts. They use Hollywood to get their message across. I hate Jeff Krasinski now, or Jim Krasinski, whatever his name from The Office. I used to love the guy, but the fact that he's doing Jack Ryan, and this is how they do this. They also do it through video games like Modern Warfare, where you see the white helmets as the heroes, whatnot. That's why it's important for people like Julian Assange to give us the truth and the transparency we need. So that is my thought on that today. because we went after Hollywood. That's
Let,
why they
let me
took our
throw
video down.
something at you. Let me throw something at you about the Ricky Gervais thing, because I know a ton of people in the conspiracy community, and a ton of people in the truth community. Sam Tripoli's friend of mine, friend of the show. And when we were talking about it, he said, look, this was scripted. He read this off of a teleprompter. They all knew that this was coming. This is so the train of thought is Epstein's going to be allowed to be persecuted and the finger pointed at, and everybody is going to immediately act like, okay, well, the bad guy's gone, so all of the kid fucking in Hollywood stuff. The same way that they tried to do that with Me Too and Harvey Weinstein. And it was only because more and more people kept getting called out on this. But the kind of people that watch the Golden Globes, Craig, they're not asking deep questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're allowed to, point at Epstein and say he's the bad guy, and oh my God, look at what Ricky Gervais was able to get away with, on regular network television, like then people stop asking questions about it and it dies down a little bit. And the only thing that keeps it going is when people like the Convo Couch cover it, people like Jason Burmis cover it, people like my show. There's a handful of other people that Graham Elwood have done a number of videos on this thing, and to all of their credit, keep talking about it.
Yes. Well, let me say this much, that, first of all, Ricky Gervais, his monologue got more watches, more views than the actual Golden Globes itself, which I love that right off the
Guaranteed.
bat. But when and that's a very interesting point, Steve. I almost called you Scuba Steve. But yeah, I mean, it's like they present this bad guy, then the bad guy goes away, and then the problem's over with. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep speaking the truth about what's going on. And it's almost kind of like what they're doing with Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump is the problem, it's the system that's the problem. It's not Epstein that's just the problem, it's Hollywood that's the problem. You know what I'm saying? They have these systemic issues in them that have to be fixed. So yeah, it is up to people like us to call this stuff out. And I got to be honest with you. Epstein, they said, Pasta, you went out the gate. You're from South Florida. You know some lawyers in the area. You know some guards that worked at the jail that Epstein was supposedly at. There's even speculation that I might have known some of the victims that used to come around. I mean, went to high school and middle school in Boca Raton, Florida, and that was his stomping grounds. And there was a lot of these parties where you'd see these certain girls show up and they're gone with a couple. They take a couple girls and they're gone, and you really don't even know who they are. But it's poor parts of Florida where these girls are broken down, broken families, and yet they're being carted off as currency to Jeffrey Epstein. But the reason why I slowed down on it is because I was so disgruntled and so aggravated and so hurt by what was going on, because no matter what, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were going around on their book tours and hanging on out and all this other stuff. It's like, if children are being used for currency, but people are so consumed or confused or just distracted about what's going on, you lose a lot of faith. So, I mean, I have to find ways to kind of pick myself up and get out there and talk about these things. I've talked about it with Graham. I said, Graham, God bless you, but I am so pissed off because no one's going to pay a price. Because even the fact that they say, okay, it might die with Epstein, nobody else is even paying a price. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all I think it's really shows how obviously powerful the elite is. And it was really disturbing, especially, and Andrew, I'll let you get your question in. It was especially disturbing, of course, to see the corporate media, the mainstream media, without question, just initially at first report that he had committed suicide. Totally ridiculous. But Andrew, go ahead.
No, I sent a link into our Zoom chat if someone could pull that up on screen.
Okay. And hey, I know we have some real quick, I know we do have some new viewers watching tonight. I've seen in the chat. Thank you guys so much for watching us, and make sure that you like this video. Also, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you are notified when we go live. And if you have already subscribed to our channel, just double check that you still are, because I know that they at times YouTube will unsubscribe people. So just double check that for us. As we are pulling up this next article, I want to remind everybody that the full extradition hearing is taking place in just a little bit over a month. Remember, it's February 25th or 24th, the last week of February. We do have a GoFundMe set up to get Steve and I to London to cover this for you guys. We will be live streaming, where we will be answering your questions and posting articles and videos throughout this entire process. And then Christy and Andrew will also be in DC holding peaceful protests and peaceful demonstrations at significant locations in that area. So if you are interested in getting coverage from Steve and I and helping Christy and Steve, or Christy and Andrew, excuse me, make it to DC, please donate. Any small amount is extremely helpful. And if you can't donate, that's completely understandable. Not everybody can. Circulating that link for us is extremely helpful. And I'm sure one of my co-hosts will be kind enough, Christy's on it, to put that in the chat for us. But I believe we do have go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say it's loading, but it's loading super slow. The link to the article here. I've almost got it. We're almost there. And then we'll all need to get a towel.
Well, we lost somebody.
I think Christy's microphone started messing up on her.
Right.
Where are you guys from? You're from Ohio, right?
Yeah, I'm in
from
the
Ohio.
Cleveland area.
Andrew and I are.
Okay.
Yes, Andrew and I are from Ohio. Steve is in California, and
I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Pasta. Ask Ron Placone. He came up here and he did a live show at the studio where I do Slow News Day at on Sundays.
Nice.
Yeah,
Santa Cruz Mountains.
Yeah, Ron's been here to Boulder Creek. It is a twisted little version of Mayberry. Right.
So we are still waiting for that article to be loaded. Craig, I know that you and Fiorella are taking some initiative to continue reporting on the election. Do you want to maybe pitch that to our audience as well?
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe. Yeah, we have a GoFundMe. We're going to try to get out there, a little cool video. We're going to try to get out there for the primaries, and just be the eyes and ears of what we need to get out there, just trying to bring transparency and truth. We're kind of on the same page as you guys, and we want to get out to Iowa. We want to get to New Hampshire, Nevada, California, New York. We want to just cover the primaries and get on out there. So
one of the big things I give you guys credit for is you do a lot of interviews with independent candidates and progressive Democrats that are running for like local offices or state houses or congressional offices that most other people don't. And behind the scenes, there's actually something I want to send you because I worked for basically like a political advertising company for a while. And I have the list of basically every progressive, independent, and green candidate from the 2018 election.
Yep.
So that I've been trying to help build like a For Truth congressional coalition. So that might be something that we could work together on.
Please, we are actually starting. Thank you so much, Andrew. We're starting. We just started the other day, Candidate Month, and we are trying to interview 16 candidates. We're going to do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I just sent it to Taylor on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 and 2 p.m. We're going to try to interview 2 candidates each day, and we have Lauren Ashcroft who's coming, and I believe we also have Rachel Rossi who's running for DA in LA. We have Sema Hernandez on deck. We have Shahid Buttar, Ruben Major, who ran for Secretary of State. He's actually running for Oceanside Mayor. We have a couple local candidates too as well. So yeah, we're really trying to blitzkrieg out this month, Candidate Month. It's something new we started, and yeah, we want to. That's also part of the reasons why we started this. It was not just about the fact that people were spinning propaganda all over our mainstream media. It was the fact that we wanted to, show the protest that they don't cover the candidates that nobody wants to speak to, wants to just drown out their voices. So it was a big reason why we showed, when we started the Convo Couch, and we're going to carry on that tradition this month with Candidate Month.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that.
Thank you very much for the props on that, because sometimes those candidate interviews don't get as many views as the show itself. I guess it's not as entertaining, but
Those are the most important interviews for people to watch, though,
oh
because
yeah,
it shows that the antivirus essentially to our current problem already exists within society.
yeah. And you know what? We try to do our homework, so we try to push back in areas we might think they're weak. I mean, everybody talks of us as being, oh, we're totally sycophants, but every single time we're in front of her, we're the first ones to ask her about Kashmir, before anybody else, which is a very hard question for her to answer, not for her personally to answer, but the fact that she would be demonized from it. And everybody who wanted to demonize her, from Peter Friedrich or Samira Khan, took our clip and used it. Even TYT used it. But yet, we asked the tough questions, and we're going to continue to ask the tough questions. I even asked her about China and the NED before anybody else did. And Fiorella asked her about Bolivia before anybody else did. And she never, censors our answers. She never, gets out there and asks them for the questions beforehand. She just lets us let it rip. And we do that with all our candidates. We even brought up a video. The first candidate we did, his name was David Cunningham. And I happened to be at an LA Democratic Club meeting, and he had a little outburst there. They actually threw him out of the room for having a fight with Ed Buck's lawyer. But we even asked him, hey, this situation right here, people are going to say you're a loose candidate. What are you going to say about that? So we're going to always push back. We're going to ask the tough questions. And, it's interesting, too, because we could dig back into the file and always say, hey, look, we got you on record. And it happens a lot. We did it with Harley Rauda. Harley Rauda, we got to moderate a debate. We said, who did you vote for in the primary? Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton? This is a guy who was seeking an Our Revolution endorsement, and he gave the bullshit answer. I voted for Hillary Clinton because I wanted to be the first woman president. So now we got a history of bullshit.
A really cool resource for you. Look up, it's called CFAR, Candidates for American Renewal. And the other one is just called Candidates with a Contract. They literally make the candidates sign a legal contract saying within so many days of office, they will introduce or co-sign legislation for specific issues. So it's a really cool idea. I actually talked with Ron about it, about trying to get Fight for the Future to set up a contract for net neutrality that candidates would have to sign instead of just a pledge.
Yeah.
So I think that might be something that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And I like when it's specific about policy. You know what I'm saying? I hate the pledges for like feelings and behavior. Like literally, I was at an LA, once again, KDEM meeting, and we just showed up to these things. And let me tell you something about the Democratic Party in California, man. When you go to these meetings, when you walk out, you better burn sage and kind of walk through that stuff. It's like holy dark spirits in there. If anybody thinks that the California Democratic Party is progressive, they don't know. And it is pretty bad. But I remember seeing a woman ask for a pledge that the candidates in the primary wouldn't attack each other. I'm like, well, it's like, I mean, I don't know about attacking somebody, but isn't that the purpose of the primary, is to talk about the differences? And if you bring up somebody's
especially
differences,
not in California. In California, you lick the asshole of the real estate developers.
Oh yeah.
You do whatever the Sackler family tells you to, and you play identity politics bingo, and whoever wins, that's who you support.
Yep.
And like that's pretty much it. And if you step out of that circle, or if you dare cross one or two of their unions, the SEIU in particular, you are persona get the fuck out.
Yeah. I get that. Also too, you could be friendly with oil in California. There's a lot of offshore drilling that goes on. Fracking. I mean, if you're friendly with oil, you can get a few bucks. They even look for the city councilman to give them money. Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't what's her name up there? She kind of turned down Chevron or Exxon. One of the best candidates, Sarah.
Oh yeah. Gail McLaughlin.
Gail McLaughlin, one of the best candidates.
She's, mayor of Richmond, which is North Bay, and rough community to be mayor of. She did an excellent job, and to his credit, their sheriff did an excellent job there for a few years. From what I understand, that's gone down the wayside. I know Andrew's itching to get to the Epstein article and circle back a little bit. Craig, I'm down to bullshit about the corruption and hellhole that is California politics with you at a different time. I'm gonna pull that.
I was just in California. It's a state I love, LA I love in particular. And I noticed, not that where I'm at in Ohio is great. Where I'm at in Ohio is, I actually have been pretty open about it. I'm originally from Youngstown, which is not a great place. I'll just say that. It is not a great place. But you know what? In LA, I noticed that there are a lot of homeless people. And then a couple blocks away, there are $1 million apartments.
Yep.
It's really disappointing. And I believe that they did pass legislation or some sort of motion where they had to do something about the homeless problem. I don't know the details of it, but that was passed 2 years ago, and still nothing has really been taken into effect. It's really sad to see, and I believe that they continue to build these luxury apartments that nobody can afford. Nobody can afford housing there. There's a lot of problems, and Jimmy Dore mentioned this during the rally on Saturday, that where's Dianne Feinstein? Where is Kamala Harris? Where are all of these Democratic senators and Democratic officials who claim to oppose Trump, and when they have an opportunity to do so, they choose not to. So I think it'd be really cool if you two did do an episode, Steve, on your show, just talking about the issues in California. I think a lot of people would be interested to hear about that.
As a
But now we
hard
do have
pivot
the
to where
article
all
up.
these politicians are, I would say most of them are aboard these kinds of planes or in these kinds of mansions. But these are some
Right.
pictures that actually just came out. It's from the pictures are from a semi-shady organization called the Mega something. But essentially these are
The
pictures
mega
showing,
agency.
showing Bill Clinton,
The
Ghislaine
mega agency.
Maxwell, Kevin
That sounds
Spacey,
legit.
Chris Tucker, and I think a couple other people on a humanitarian aid trip to Africa on the Lolita Express with Ghislaine Maxwell and one of the that woman right there. I can't remember her name, but she was a serial trafficking victim that worked as like Epstein's pilot, or not pilot, but like hostess for parties and watched.
Shantae Davies is her name, Andrew.
Yeah. And I think
Shantae
on this
Davies.
trip they had her actually dress up like a
There's
steward,
Virginia
so that
Roberts.
way she could blend in on the plane better. Yeah, this picture right here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
guys, something's going on with that mega agency. I think the mega agency was the same one who released the in and out photos that, and it was kind of cool because we went over to that same in and
Right.
out, I think it was the mega agency again. So it's
I think that was a different mega, because there's two of them. There's mega group and mega agency. And there hasn't been any connections made, as far as I know, in relation to the two. But aside
No,
from
look, but you
mega
guys should
group and
definitely spend some time looking into the mega group.
Kermit did a pretty
and
good piece on it recently.
read
That's where I
Whitney
found this
Webb's
on.
read Whitney Webb's Epstein series. Watch Whitney Webb on Slow News Day from when those articles first started coming out. And yeah, the mega group is just insane. Scroll back through these, finish scrolling through these pictures here, and then we'll put it back on.
it's like a month doesn't go by where it's more allegations about Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. Again, listen, when they were at the New Mexico ranch months for years, their holiday at the old Western house and stuff, it's like, come on. Now there's Hillary on the property. Who's that? A boy, Kevin Spacey?
That's Kevin
Spacey.
Spacey.
Yeah, he looked familiar.
That's Kevin Spacey looking really lit.
Yeah.
Coked up.
A pretty young Kevin Spacey too.
Method actor.
And
guy
to be fair, in the caption it says they don't know if Kevin Spacey did anything. They're not assuming guilt. And there's another.
Please.
Yeah.
See,
Right.
if you're on this neck of the woods, you'll know that Kevin Spacey's a pervert. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm sorry, but I know people who worked on sets that Kevin Spacey acted inappropriately to other boys. So he could go scratch if he's going to try to sit there and say he's innocent. Everybody knows he's a pervert.
There were jokes about it. There were jokes about him on a lot of shows, I feel, and of course we know that
Family Guy.
People. Yeah.
Family Guy had Stewie running through the mall.
Time ago.
I couldn't remember if it was that or American
I've been
Dad.
trapped in Kevin Spacey's basement.
Yes. And now, what is it? The fourth victim or the fourth person to come forward
since May.
Suddenly has an untimely death.
Yeah, the odds of that are relatively similar to the odds of Tim Canova getting 5% across the board in his 2018 race.
Yep. Which is like, I think he says you can win the lottery 3 times a day for the every day for the next, something ridiculous too. I'm pretty close with Tim, and he got screwed both times.
So he's not running again, but he is still involved in some big election integrity moves. He just held a really, really cool forum out there that we had streamed. So I think I want to clip it out at some point, but
yeah. Well, we don't know that he's not running just yet. I mean, he can jump in as an independent eventually too, as well.
Yeah,
I don't think
he said he wasn't. I think he said that he had decided not to run. I think
for the record, I haven't talked about this at all, but I'm not a fan of Jen Perlman. I'm not. I don't think that she would ultimately be too much better than Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She'd be like first gen, first album Debbie Wasserman Schultz, like not completely corrupt to the bone yet, but perfectly willing to be. A lot like Kamala Harris.
Talking about?
Talking about Jen Perlman.
Okay.
The woman who's running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the Democratic primary.
Okay.
Florida's 2030.
I'm unfamiliar with her. I know
we did a show with her. We did a show with her. You should check it out. You know what I'm saying? And it was hard to do the show at first because I am such a big Tim Canova guy. But I don't think she'd be that bad at all. I mean, I think she'd be a way big improvement over Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And the electability in that area is really tricky, Steve. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot harder for Tim to win than it is from an old school Jewish woman from that area that grew up in that area. You know what I'm saying? She's just a little bit tighter bond with that community. And, unfortunately, because I'm not saying unfortunately, but it was just unfortunately that Tim really didn't get the support he should have, because he's an amazing candidate, a professor at Nova. I love the guy more than anything. The night they opened up the Bernie Sanders campaign office in Miami was the night I met Tim Canova. And we met at the Cubans for Bernie, which is a really inspiring rally because it was down in Miami where the young Cuban children of whose parents were like Republican, right-wing, hardcore, hate Bernie Sanders because he has the socialist tag, are like, F you, we know what's going on. We're for workers' rights. We're for the people. And I met Tim Canova speaking down there. But Jen, I think, is definitely an upgrade. And if it comes down to just being Jen versus Debbie, I would definitely support Jen. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is awful, ladies and gentlemen. She is one of the worst. You know where she gets the majority of her money in Florida? Payday lenders, vulture capitalists. She gets money from the worst of the worst. Not only that, we're talking about Epstein right now, Jeffrey's brother. She sits on the board of one of Jeffrey Epstein's brother's foundations.
That's very.
I mean, of course they do. It's a whole interconnected web of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
And she gets a lot of money, I believe, from the pharmaceutical companies as well.
Mm-hmm. And Big Ag.
Yeah, and She's
actually one of the leading people that stopped the legislation that caused the red tide to happen around the state of Florida recently. Yep.
Big Sugar, they call it out over there. The way they handle that whole product, they just screwed up freaking all, the intercoastals of Florida. It was disgusting, some of the algae. I went up one day in Port St. Lucie, from that area, and it was just disgusting what I saw in the water that day. It's sad. And, that whole Clinton machine profited off Big Sugar out there. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she's just an extension of the Clintons. Not only that, in a debate against Tim Canova, she talked about it. She goes, it wasn't a private prison. It was a immigrant detention center. Boom. And she was endorsed by Obama. Like, this is, and people want to go, Donald Trump's putting kids in cages. Yeah. Barack Obama just supported a woman who built that community right in South Florida. Please.
Yeah. Obama built the cages. Trump is
Obama built
them up.
Yeah.
Real quick, about Ken
Real quick, I want to thank
article?
one of our donations, somebody that donated to us just now, who's a new viewer tonight. Tisha T donated to us. Thank you so much for donating to our GoFundMe. It is greatly appreciated, guys. We are about, just because we're kind of in crunch time, we are about almost 50% of the way funded.
Nice.
So any little bit is extremely helpful. Thank you so much again, Tisha, and everybody who has donated to us so far and who has been supporting us and even sharing that link. Thank you. I wanted to make sure that we thanked her for that.
This might be a good time to remind everybody that we are doing a sort of fundraising show this Sunday with Gordon Dimmick, who is helping us host this show. And we have lots of guests planned, specifically some UK guests that are a little hard to get as we do this show very late on the US side of things. So yeah, we've got some guests planned. We're going to have some fun with Gordon and sort of have our own mini telethon to help with this fundraiser, specifically this Sunday, the 12th.
Yeah. You guys got a new watcher over here. You know what I'm saying, guys? I'm all with you now. I'm glad I met Taylor at the rally protest and, finally got to meet some of you guys, Steve, to finally talk to you and everybody else on the show and stuff. I got a new fan over here. I'm really happy for, listen, we're under attack. The most precious commodity we have right now as humans is information. And they're trying to silence it. They're trying to suppress it. So us getting this information out here, and I know what you guys are going through, and good luck this Sunday with the protest. Good luck with those GoFundMes, because they put a chokehold on you. They strangle you. They don't want you to get any money, to get any momentum, to get out there. They want you consumed, having to work so you spend less time doing this. So any part about getting finances to get you guys to do more of this, I'm behind it. Support these guys. Help them out. They're doing great work.
So we recently started doing every other vigil until the extradition hearing, and then maybe until Jason wants to stick around for it. We're actually going to have Jason Burmis taking us live on his channel as well. So that's something cool to look out for too. We're trying to almost find like broadcasting partners and then syndicate other people's shows in talking about like hard hitting, not horse race issues. So
Nice.
if that's something you might want to get involved in the future, that might be pretty cool.
Totally. As you know, I'm only 1/3 of the combo couch. So I have, the boss, Fiorella, to always talk to, and Johnny Sue, our engineer. But yeah, I mean, anything you guys are involved with. And this Friday, we'll be releasing Taylor's interview. We spoke a little bit longer than the other two interviews. She had a lot to say, but a lot of great information. And, we just take them, clip them up, a couple good, clips of good articles in there. We'll kind of echo what Taylor's saying, but she gave a great interview. Sounds good, looks good. So this Friday on the Convo Couch, midday, we'll be releasing that. Take a look at that one.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you guys do great work. I mean, really, really great stuff. And I told you, I love the story of how you and Fiorella got connected and how you guys met. I believe you were talking about it on another show where the two of you were being interviewed.
Yeah.
You guys have a really great and inspiring story, I think. So yeah, we thank you so much for your support, especially.
We worked at a restaurant together, and I walked in, and she was filling up the soy sauces, the green and the red ones, and she would, you know what I'm saying, and they were playing that song. I was standing, you were there, and we're just merely business partners, but it was been the best partnership of my life, becoming her business partner and starting the show. It's you know what I'm saying, it's not a financial dream come true, because I used to be a corporate manager with healthcare and a good pay. I mean, I was the cheerleader of small corporate restaurants. Just great job. And to fulfill this responsibility, a guy by the name of Jackie Robinson, he once said, a life is insignificant unless it has a special impact on others. And just looking to make that impact, to fill that void. And that's what we're doing. We're real news. We're real information. We're real discussions, real nuance. It's important. So she's been a great partner, and it is a great story, and I hope we can keep going on it, and I hope you guys grow too. I'm looking forward to see what you guys are going to do in London. That's going to be some great shit. Can I say shit on your show?
You can,
yeah. Of course.
Thank you. That's going to be some great shit.
Steve's jokes are quite funny and pretty
often
X-rated at times.
Off color, Pasta. I have been known to swear a wee bit. I guess I'll, I would clean up my act if I have to, but it's my show. I don't have to. And this
there
is
you go.
Host, and they haven't told me not to swear. So, occasionally.
Here's the thing. You're not going to get monetized anyways. You know what I'm saying? YouTube's not going to monetize. Listen, guys, they made us wait twice to monetize us. And this is why, when I talk about our civil liberties, Tulsi Gabbard going and suing Google for $50 million, it's important. It's a lot of significance, because I know what it's like. I don't have any money to go after these guys, but they could sit there and tell us and demonetize us for no reason and not even give you an explanation. There's no rules. There's no guidelines. It's the wild, wild west of information, and they're controlling it. So, I mean, I'm keep freaking going. And if you curse a little bit, who cares? Because like I said, they're going to only monetize you to demonetize your videos, and they don't tell you why. Not suitable for children anyways. Fuck off.
So there's a new organization that formed late last year called FairTube. It's a
Oh,
German
jeez.
metal union teamed up with a YouTuber. His name's Jorg from the Slingshot channel. Hey, I haven't talked about him in a while, but they're
This
in the
video.
EU. They're suing Google to have YouTubers actually listed as full employees instead of just independent contractors working for YouTube, and almost got entered into collective negotiations. So it's something that's really cool going on behind the scenes. And I don't know if you've signed up to be a FairTube member, but the only requirement is 1,400 subscribers.
Mm. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look into it because I don't know if I necessarily want to be an employee. I would like to be I would like to be an independent contractor. I just think that they have to have rules and regulations and show
Yeah,
transparency. You know what I'm
the
saying? I just want them to act accordingly themselves. And that means have a, this is freedom of speech. You can't act as just a platform. If you're not acting as a platform, you're acting as a, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out when you're the newspaper
an
guy.
editor.
Thank you. When you're acting as an editor and not a platform, that's some murky waters to get into. And, we also are on this other platform called Rockfin, ROKFIN. It is a cryptocurrency-based platform. We urged Nico to come on. He came on right after us, and he's got one of the biggest growing channels. We actually had the most watched stream last year, and they're growing. They're very much like a YouTube, except they deal in cryptocurrency. And they really give back to the creators. And cryptocurrencies are growing. And cryptocurrency is another way to say, hey, whether you believe it or not, it's another way to say F you to the big machine, because they can everything we're doing right now at the end of the road is what? The monetary system, right? Who controls the monetary system? Who controls people? So they're controlling that system very well. With the monetary system, our dollar, what makes a dollar worth a dollar. Go a little cryptocurrency over here. You know what I'm saying? They have rules, regulations set up. They're transparent. You know what's going on. They tell you how many cryptos they burn. People can buy into it on the market. It's through Ethereum. So ROKFIN, Rockfin, check it out. And you guys should get on there too as well. Tell them the Combo Couch sent you.
Well,
Okay. We are thinking
I've
about
talked to
doing that.
Nico about it a little bit. My show. Oh my gosh, dude. So I watched this happen with YouTube. For every like 1 or 2 subscribers I'm allowed to keep, there are 15, 20, 30 people that subscribe to the show.
Yeah.
And so my numbers aren't all that great. I'm pretty sure there's a subscriber, minimum for Rockfin. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, I mean, not really. We just, we'll just keep the news out. We're in touch with them, so we'll just pass on the family peeps that are doing good stuff, and you just continue to do that. And we can see, you talk to Nico, and we'll reach out to them as well and say, hey, man, this is free Assange group too as well. So yeah, and you got to remember too, your subscribers are never going to be true, Steve, because you know why? YouTube unsubscribes people. We literally went from 4,000 subscribers to 24,000 subscribers within 4 months. We got the boost. We were out there. We were covering Epstein stuff. We did a lot more shows with Ron. Pictures with the family, the whole 9 yards. We just really grew. And then all of a sudden, it was like somebody said, "Oh hell no, they're growing too fast. They're spreading too much truth," and they shut the faucet off. For the last 3 months, we have gone backwards 200 subscribers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's what
seems
it's
that a
been
lot of
like.
people will get a jump and then they sort of kind of stall. But I know, we're talking a lot about the importance of what we do, and it's really important that we continue to speak about Iran. There's another article that we do want to touch on. Specifically, this one I believe is written by Craig Murray, and I believe, Steve, you could pull that up for us on the screen. I do want to thank another donation that came from Jake Lopez. Thank you so much for your donation. Greatly appreciated. But I think we do need to get back to Iran, and in particular,
We've gone a little far afield.
We got to get out of Iran.
All right. So yeah, I spoke about this on my show for a little bit the other day. But this is incredibly important for people to just have in their head at the ready when people are talking about this. craigmurray.org.uk is the website. In one of the series of blatant lies the USA is told to justify the assassination of Soleimani, Mike Pompeo, Fat Mike, said that Soleimani was killed because he was planning, quote, imminent attacks unquote, on U.S. citizens. This is a careful choice of words. Pompeo is specifically referring to the Bethlehem doctrine of preemptive self-defense. Okay, and I'll come back to the article here, but I'd like to get you guys' thoughts as I go into this.
There's no
You're
such thing as
familiar with
preemptive self-defense.
you're
Preemptive
familiar with the
self-defense is
Bush
a war
doctrine
crime.
of preemptive war. This is written about a year after that. This is already 2004 now. Drone strikes are already a thing, and David Bethlehem at the time was working for Netanyahu's government when he came up with I'm going to assume the borrowed concept of preemptive self-defense from the Bush administration. But this specifically pertains to drone strikes. And so when Mike Pompeo says imminent threat, let me go back here because this is incredible.
Well, the term imminent, according to the doctrine, if I remember right,
that's where I'm getting.
Yeah, doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
And the legal definition, I believe, is classified, and any evidence that would have to even be presented doesn't even have to be presented in a way because it can be classified information. So it's based on nothing.
Yeah. Right here, man. Imminent, the word used by Pompeo, doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't have to mean soon. It doesn't have to mean about to happen. An attack may be deemed imminent according to the Bethlehem doctrine, even if you know no details of it or when it might occur. I would like to get your thoughts, Pasta, on the Bethlehem doctrine.
All right. Well, it's kind of interesting because the mainstream media seems to be asking a question when it comes to Soleimani, and their rhetoric is he evil or is he not? And I think a lot of people are kind of getting caught up in whether Soleimani is evil or not. I just have said, to kill a monster, you have to create another monster to do so. And, this particular general, ran militias, was a big pusher of militias, whatnot, because that's the way the region is set up. We've, destabilized it so much that there's not going to be like actual, forces from a country because the countries are shattered into a million pieces. So militias pop up. And this gentleman was able to, really somewhat curtail a lot of the Shia militias, even some Sunni militias in Iraq that he was able to get together to fight against those fascists of ISIS, of Al Qaeda, which is kind of funny when they start saying, Soleimani killed American troops or American interest because we were actually funding ISIS and Al Qaeda in some parts of Syria. And then the Indian media seems to be talking about why was he killed, whatnot. Even Nico and my partner, I think they have a little bit more of a different mentality when it comes to why he was killed. I happen to think that the last straw was the fact that we talk about all the militias that Soleimani stood behind. One of those militias he stood behind, those rebel groups, were the Houthis. The Houthis seem to really increase their drone capabilities and their power. Whatnot. Now, I don't believe, I don't have hard actual, facts to really connect the dots, but I believe that the Houthis really changed a lot of the way things are looked upon in that region. Saudi Arabia realized how vulnerable they were. I think Soleimani helped the Houthis with their drone strikes and hit Donald Trump and Saudi Arabia in their pocket where it means the most. And I think that was the line in the sand they crossed. And that's why Donald Trump, went to this extent. Now, we've been trying to kill him for a while. But overall, no matter what, talking to the article that Craig Murphy wrote over there and making this vague kind of imminent language that he uses and stuff, we need to transition to our overall foreign policy as a whole in that region. No matter what, whether we try to use certain things to really stick this to Donald Trump, lines to say what he did was illegal or not illegal, or why we can do this. Congress has pretty much given over the powers to the executive branch to make these decisions. Bernie Sanders is a peaceful candidate, and we would like him to speak up on Julian Assange, but he also signed off to the AUMF. All the mechanisms are in place for the war hawks to say they can kill somebody because he's an imminent threat, whatever. And if you look at it, when your foreign policy says that Iran is an enemy, that Soleimani will be your number one target. So
The
regardless
axis of
of
evil.
what they say,
They're the axis of evil, Pastor.
yeah,
Axis of evil.
yeah, a country that hasn't attacked anybody or invaded anybody since I think the movie 300 with Darius and Xerxes and Sparta. I mean, that was the last time the Persians went off to try to invade anybody. You know what I'm saying? But yet they're the axis of evil. Same thing with China. Same thing with Russia. I mean, it's little blips on the radar. Meanwhile, United States, a week can't go by without you hearing about a drone strike, whether it be in Somalia, the Middle East, whether we're killing or removing Manuel Zelaya or Evo Morales. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, not only do they have the media in control to get their spin, they have all these mechanisms in place where they can say, yo, he was an imminent threat, therefore we killed him.
It's
And the big
so
thing too.
I'm gonna come back to the article here real quick, because this kind of encapsulates it. I do want to get your thoughts though on the report that circulated over the last couple of days that Soleimani only came to Iraq under the guise of, the ruse of, or even the actual reality of a negotiation with de-escalation with Saudi Arabia.
Okay, that's where I disagree with my partner, and that's where I agree with some other people too as well. I disagree with Max Blumenthal and all these guys, whatnot. I don't believe for 1 second that there were serious peace talks between Saudi Arabia and Iran. If you understand how Saudi Arabia is set up, they're holding on by a thread. The United States government is propping them up, and there is so much money invested in Saudi Aramco with the stock exchange and that oil that if MBS or any of his affiliates or anybody close to him were caught having actual peace negotiations with Iran, I think that's the end of that regime no matter what. So I don't believe that there were actual peace talks. But to be honest with you, and I've heard rumors from people saying that this was an altogether setup between the deep states of Iran and the deep states of the United States. And sorry to get off on conspiracy theory, that Soleimani was becoming too powerful and that they had to have him removed. So what I'm trying to say is that you probably get more straight answers in the Epstein situation than you will what's going on over here. That's how deep and dark things are. And as you know, WikiLeaks fans, Julian Assange watchers, that they're still cutting off the information. So I don't believe that personally. Maybe they were talking about how do we calm the militias in the area and be peaceful through that way. But I don't believe this was a hit where we had to say, okay, he's meeting on peace talks. We got to take him out before they start having peace talks. Unfortunately, I don't buy that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I don't buy it.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that it was, a part of an ongoing thing or part. It's. I mean, obviously, you don't invite a general to the peace talk. You invite the diplomats. But if diplomacy is broken down, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It really is. I want to highlight this quote from Craig Murray real quick. The truth of the matter, and this particularly pertains to the assassination of Soleimani, the way that he's been portrayed in the media, that, he's got the blood of all these Americans on his hands, which is something that Dick Cheney started like 15 years ago. That's where that rumor came from. There's zero confirmation of it. The truth of the matter is, if you take every American killed, including and since 9/11, in the resultant Middle East wars, conflicts and terrorists, I'm sorry, I'm reading this poorly, well over 90% of them have been killed by Sunni Muslims, financed and supported out of Saudi Arabia and its Gulf satellites, and less than 10% of those Americans have been killed by Shia Muslims tied to Iran.
Yeah.
That's and they keep inflating that number, by the way. From the time that Craig Murray published this to today, that number has gone up significantly. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. When you say Sunni Wahhabi caliphates from Saudi Arabia, you have to say the United States, because we fund that government. We keep that government alive. And that is the government that is going out and spreading this. I get a lot of shit. A lot of people tell me I'm too pro-Beijing, okay? Because as a progressive, I think my number one enemy is what? Poverty. Xi Jinping has raised a lot of people out of poverty, but where do people go after him? the Uyghurs, okay, saying that we're jailing all these Uyghurs. They're just poor Muslims. It's religious bigotry. But meanwhile, there's been multiple reports, and I've talked to people over in that area, people like Mark Sloboda who know these things, and they talk about it. What's going on in Xinjiang, Western China, is that Wahhabi caliphates funded by where the Saudi Arabian government had been spread through that region. And we know this to be true because in that region and the Chechenian region, they have gone over to Syria to fight against Americans from those regions. So when you hear that whole thing, when you see that Sunni versus Shia, once again, Iran hasn't invaded anybody. The majority of the Shia population, it's moderate at best compared to this Wahhabist caliphates that come right from the radical Sunnis of Saudi Arabia. And it's funded directly by who? Us. It's Americans killing other Americans. So why? The military-industrial complex goes round and round. Everybody's killing each other. Missiles are flying, and they're making a ton of money. The military-industrial complex doesn't care if we go into Iran and we win the war. The military-industrial complex doesn't care if we go to Iran and lose the war. All the military-industrial complex cares about is that we have the war. And what we're talking about, that sentence right there, the way that's exactly what they're funding. Them.
I had to say
that. And Susie Dawson, who's a friend of our Vigils series, she wrote an article a few years ago called Understanding World War III. I encourage everybody to please check this out. There are some remarkable quotes in here. There's one that I want to read. There's two in particular, and then we can maybe discuss it. Well, actually, I'll start with this one because it's a little bit longer, but I would like to get your thoughts on this because she makes the point, she introduces the article stating that World War II did not begin in 1939. In fact, it began in 1933. And she alludes to the idea that World War III will start before we are fully aware that it's starting. But one of my favorite quotes from this article is where she says, "We have become numb, quote, to the overblown rhetoric of Western leaders. It never quite sunk into the global public that America declaring a state of emergency, invoking war powers, dramatically expanding military capabilities and financing, employing legions of mercenaries, invading a string of foreign nations, upending elected governments, occupying foreign lands, incurring civilian casualties into the millions, creating massive refugee crises, and incessantly lying about their motives for it was in fact them instigating a third world war," end quote. What are some of our thoughts on that? There's been a lot of talk about this being the start of World War III. And I think that this is an article that we should be referencing and looking to. And again, for those in the chat, if you have not read this, please read it. There are some remarkable quotes in here. And then also some remarkable quotes about how this war efforts could not be as successful as they are unless the media was completely compromised and pushing this war. It could not happen in the way that it does unless we had a very obedient media.
You're right about that, but no major power wants World War III. They're not an actual hot World War III where all of the superpowers square off against each other. I'm not sure if it was Einstein or if it's attributed to him, but he was asked about what kind of weapons would be used in the next World War. And he said, "I have no idea what kind of weapons will be used, but I know the following one will be fought with stone axes."
Yeah. Sticks and stones. Yeah.
We already have scattered depleted uranium across Iraq so bad that their children are being born with birth defects. We used the burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq directly outside of our military bases to pollute their water and ground and crop fields. So, I mean, the weapons of war have already started, and they're not even like the big things they have developed behind the scenes yet.
I say that, though, to say this: the United States is not interested in winning a war. The United States is interested in prolonging a war to enrich and entrench those military industrial the military-industrial complex, the everything that Craig has mentioned, everything that Taylor's mentioned, the MICMAT, as Ray McGovern calls it, that's why we stay in a state of perpetual war. But winning would imply leaving.
Yeah.
Winning would imply like a cease to the fucking gravy train these corpse manufacturing satanic pedophile sons of bitches get to generate off of this.
Yeah. You guys ever hear about Operation Mockingbird?
Oh, of course.
It's, you know, what Taylor alluded to. It's like, you know, they have the media. They have it. Every major media outlet across the world has some type of deep state or whatever you want to call them, intelligence, you know, elitist kind of apparatus, and they're pulling a lot of strings. It's one of their biggest weapons. You control information, you control everything. So, yeah.
And that's why
to plug the show that's coming out on Thursday, Christy and I went to DC to do an interview with Lee Camp. We were there, did the interview on Monday. The show should be coming out tomorrow for the redacted VIP. But RT had a TV setup that had Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and then it showed RT. And every time Fox started talking about an issue, a minute or two later, CNN would switch over to that issue. And a minute or two later, MSNBC would switch over. And same headlines, same captions, same talking points, same discussions.
Yeah.
And it basically made it sound like John Bolton was our Secretary of State again, or Secretary of Defense.
They're on a certain email chain. They got to follow the same friggin' thing, and that's huge. It's like they're on the same page. I wonder if they got TYT at a TV next to them, if they would be part of that echo right now, because they're getting close now at this point and stuff. You know,
there is a quote that I want to share from Susie's article, if I can find it, because it's a really good. I just lost it. Okay, here it is. In her article, Understanding World War III, she says, quote, "For the propaganda of the state to thrive, there must be a wholesale subjugation of the press," end quote. And I also want to make sure that I address this as well, because I said I was going to talk about it. Just briefly, though, a part of our mission with these vigils is to really encourage and inspire people to become involved in activism and to become involved in decentralized activism in particular. And we oftentimes say, make sure you kind of piggyback off of other related protests and rallies. And that's exactly what I did on Saturday. That's what Graham Elwood did. We went there with WikiLeaks t-shirts on. We were at an anti-war rally. This is the same one that Pasta was at, and Fiorella, and so many others. But we went there with WikiLeaks t-shirts on to show support for WikiLeaks, of course, because I've said many times that if you are anti-war, you must be pro-WikiLeaks. And I was able to talk to people there about WikiLeaks and about Julian Assange, while also spreading awareness for the organization. And the people there were very receptive to hear what I had to say. And that's just a perfect example of kind of using these other movements, not to take away from them, but to add value to them by talking about WikiLeaks. And I explained to many people that if we don't have access to truthful information, we have nothing, and we need that. And I actually had people approach me, not a whole lot, but I had a few people approach me just because of the t-shirt I was wearing. And they wanted to talk to me about Julian. And it didn't happen a whole lot, but there were a few, and that was really cool. So just wearing a t-shirt, having a sign, I didn't have a sign with me at the rally, but just wearing that t-shirt was helpful. And I think it does make a difference. And of course, it's not taking away from a rally or protest, but if you tie it into the value of the protest that's being had and their message, it really helps, because of course,
connected.
When we had an anti-war rally, I mean, of course, WikiLeaks is going to absolutely mesh well with that. So that's just a reminder for something for people to do. And also, people for Assange, if you're watching, I have the wristbands here. Thank you guys so much. They are free Assange wristbands. Thank you. I was able to finally get them. So I'm really grateful for that. I will be wearing it, and I will promise my co-hosts, I promise you guys, I will send these to you, and I will send you the yellow ones as well. I've been promising this for like 6 months now. I'm serious. The 3 of you will have them. But I just
So, Craig, I'm
thank
interested.
you guys.
As someone who's a little more connected to like the horse race kind of politics, what has anyone said about the OPCW leaks? Like, have any of the candidates spoke out?
You know, I haven't seen anything. Tulsi got questioned the other day about it. I think the person was more of a Tulsi fan, kind of trying to
It was
speak more
actually
on.
me. It was
That
actually
was
me
you,
that
right?
asked
Yeah,
Tulsi.
yeah, that was you. Okay, I was looking at her. I'm like, she looks so familiar. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, and I think Dak, you know, who me and Taylor talked about briefly too as well on Saturday, I believe. He retweeted that out. That's why I saw him talking
He
about
was he was the
what.
one who filmed it. We were there together. Yeah. So we saw Tulsi in New Hampshire on Friday night, and yeah, I asked specifically. I talked about Julian and how he's dying in prison, and in spite of that fact, that WikiLeaks is still continuing to publish, and that now we have the 4th OPCW leak. And so I asked Tulsi if she could talk about that in context of um, foreign policy, because her rally
Yeah,
was specifically started out as "We woke up and we're at war," and
yeah,
talking about Iran and the situation there and how serious it is. And her answer was really focused on, we have, the WMDs from Iraq. Now we have the OPCW leaks for Syria. What are we being told about Iran that we will maybe 10 years from now find out we were lied into? And so that we really need to understand um, what is being told to our government from our intelligence agencies. Are we being lied into another war? And the benefit of having information before we do things like
yeah.
this. She said herself she was very curious on what will be presented to Congress for this, but had not seen anything yet. So
Well, here's the thing. I think, once again, she's a humble person. She doesn't like to brag. She's the spirit of aloha. Those things are true about Tulsi as who she is as a person. And, when the OPCW came out with their report, again, for a lot of us, we were like, oh, mainstream media establishment, I guess Tulsi was friggin' right. Okay. How many times do we have to debunk all this stuff? So it got lost in a lot of things, but Tulsi is not one of those people to say, hey guys, didn't I get it right? You know what I'm saying?
right, I wish Tulsi was banking in on her "I told you so" moment with these leaks. But if, yeah, like you said, she's pretty humble
She's not
about
that
it.
type of person.
She's
Yeah.
not that
You
type
can
of
call
person.
Hillary Clinton the queen of all warmongers. She could fucking slap her lady balls on the table and say I was right about this.
Especially even if it's just
True.
going on Tucker Carlson for a 15-minute segment where she goes over in semi-detail what the OPCW reported and why she was correct. To where I
Yeah.
don't think, not to like put it as a slight against her, but she hasn't taken the step to then say, hey, look at what WikiLeaks released about what I've been saying the
Right.
whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
think-
yeah. No, listen.
I think she needs to step up if she truly wants to support Assange. Here's another opportunity, once again, that she could step up to the plate, use this to her own advantage, and then still connect it to why we need WikiLeaks, why we need Assange,
Yeah.
and why what's happening to him is not right.
Well, let me tell you something. When I get the chance, I'm going to ask her about the OPCW and talk a little bit more about that. Maybe I might talk about it with China in Hong Kong and that situation, because I see that situation as one of the most dangerous, really hot button situations. A lot of people wouldn't talk about China and Hong Kong, but I think that's a lot of is up to us too to echo that stuff and get that out there. Tulsi just isn't that type of person to kind of do that. You know what I'm saying? She did talk about it. I remember you said the question. She's like, "Do you want to elaborate on it?" And you were like, "No, go ahead." And she explained clearly, what the OPCW is. The OPCW is one of those institutions that's got it right before in the past, I believe, right? So once again, we don't know the connections, what's going on, the interlayings of how things are happening. But yeah, and let me tell you something else too as well. Not only that, but when it comes to Bernie Sanders, and guys, on the show, we went to that KDEM convention in Long Beach, and I was a little, when Taylor and I were talking, she even talked about, she mentioned Dak by name from asking him that question. Bernie Sanders was set there to be in that room. And I promise this to you guys, the first question I have will be, will you clear Assange of his name? Will you release Assange? Will you pardon Assange? That will be my first question. But these things are just up to us to push them out. You know, you got the OPCW, you got the NED, you got the OAS, you're getting all these alphabet soups now coming on, but we got to keep talking about them, because not only, you know, people like Assange and Chelsea Manning who go out to expose these corrupt, you know, governments and organizations, it's up to us to repeat that sentiment. You know what I'm saying? There are so many things. Tulsi's trying to run a campaign, and it's tough at times because anything she say could be sometimes used against her. So maybe sometimes she just doesn't want to go out there and try to brag about getting it right. But that was a big thing. She got it right. Every single time she goes on MSNBC, CNN, she's attacked. Well, how can you meet with Assad? Those of us who support her, that's the reason why we do support her, is because she did go and talk to Assad. And you know who she went with? Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich is the gold standard for Medicare for all, ladies and gentlemen. Barack Obama had to put him on Air Force One and try to convince him. He was so upset that at the very least it didn't have the public option. So now she also has the endorsement of Dennis Kucinich. I haven't heard her say anything about that to brag, to say to all those people, say, oh, you're getting scared about the choice word. Well, she's got the best person on healthcare now in her corner that's going to talk for her in the room when she gets elected president when it comes to healthcare. It's just not about Tulsi to push it forward. So I guess what, guys? It's in our hands. We got to push it forward. But yes, I hear you.
If I could position one question to Bernie, it would be based off of the question that Dak asked when Bernie said, like, now's not the time. I would ask Bernie, what would be the time and condition that he would speak up for Julian, and would it only occur after Julian's death? Like, is that the only situation that Bernie would feel responsible to speak up in? Because he's been so blatantly silent on such a big issue since WikiLeaks released the information about the DNC in 2016.
Yeah.
Like, even back then, he didn't stand up as an ally to truth-telling media.
And you know, when I was going to ask Bernie Sanders my question, guys, and I wish I could have gotten from, because I'm telling you, I was front and center in that room. Me and Fiorella, we owned that press conference. We turned it into a foreign policy press conference. We got Cory Booker on record saying he stands behind the OAS. We got Pete Buttigieg giving you a platitude salad of what he's going to do day one. We got, you know, Kamala Harris saying that she doesn't care about our civil liberties and she still wants to remove Donald Trump's Twitter, regardless if it's a violation of our amendments, our civil liberties. Only Tom Steyer was halfway decent when it came to foreign policy, but I was sitting in that room and waiting for him, and I was going to phrase it and say, hey, Lay, you told us, Bernie Sanders, that we got to run for office, that we got to be the voice, we got to be, well, some of us in this room, and believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I mean, I love my life, I love doing the Convo Couch, but I didn't start this because I wanted to. I started it because Bernie Sanders told us we had responsibilities. And if nobody was out there telling the truth, nobody's going to London to give us the information on that arrangement that you're going to go to. And nobody's going to these candidates. Nobody's going in these rooms to asking these people that questions. You told us to go in there. So why aren't you standing up and why aren't you speaking out for Julian Assange? Will you pardon Julian Assange? That is how I was going to ask that question. You know, and it's just important. Because even though Chris Hedges says we are mice squeaking against an avalanche, squeak we must. So I'm going to just continue to squeak.
And to his credit, like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Bernie Sanders. Like, he's the
all of us
person
would, right?
like, he's the person that started me doing this. I have the bobblehead.
I'd be here.
Steve would.
Be here.
But
Yeah.
But that was when I was going on like 23, 24, just had a second kid, and that was where I had placed hope and where I had started fighting, like, in my adult life, essentially. So I wouldn't be an office holder for the Green Party right now if it wouldn't have been for him. And then
and Taylor, I know you want to say something, but really quickly, I just want to just say, ladies and gentlemen, too, as well. And we talked about Tim Canova, too, as well. And Tim Canova, you know, even has this mental, this mental thought, too, as well, that maybe Bernie was threatened. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things changed at the convention. I remember Portia Bolger coming out, I don't give an F about Trump. What is Bernie Sanders doing? We don't know at what capacity Bernie Sanders was threatened, or what his strategy is, and what is going on, and what we can do. So, we can only point the finger so much, and believe you me, when Dak asked him about Assange, he seemed upset. Like, that's a loaded question, the finger there, you know what I'm saying? And I think I even asked Taylor about, what about the actual pushback on Assange, as far as, like, did he push Chelsea Manning to give him more information? You know what I'm saying? That's the loophole where I guess the deep state or whoever's trying to hold Assange accountable. We also have to remember that Bernie Sanders in the debate said that he wouldn't completely pardon Snowden, that Snowden had to pay a price of sorts or come back. And, so, I guess we're kind of operating in some murky waters. But, we have to deal with the fact that it was a possibility that he might have been threatened.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, because they're worth it, and I'm glad you did. It is up to us, and I say this often. And if there are Bernie people watching, if the progressive axiom "Bernie listens to his base and we can move him left" is true, please use that to encourage Bernie Sanders to make a statement on Julian Assange before he's in US custody, before he dies from the torture that he's received for the better part of a decade. Please do that. Please organize as his base and move him to a position where he makes a statement on Julian Assange's behalf.
Sorry, Taylor, for stepping on your words.
No, not at all. No, the guest always gets the opportunity to speak first. I was just going to mention, because I know that Pete Buttigieg came up, of course, and I believe that you and I spoke about him too, Craig.
He's a
Steve,
sociopath.
he's nuts. He is a sociopath.
He's a
Steve,
sociopath.
I was at his
has a
rally
little.
this weekend too, which was very interesting.
Okay.
Where were you at? You went to his thing?
I went to a Pete rally this weekend too, and we were protesting outside for Julian Assange, and the comments that were said to us, probably got the top 5 smears of Julian Assange through that. And then going inside and actually watching Pete try to be this like new age Obama, he was definitely trying to appeal to the middle. And to me, he was super fake, and it was very interesting to see him live and to see the crowd react and buy into it. And it was kind of gross, honestly. It was
it's scary. I call him Buttigieg. He is like Obama. He never talks policy. He gives you the platitude salad. He believes his own bullshit. He's a sociopath. So.
Right. You know what? I do want to kind of intro it here for Steve, because he has an interesting story to kind of tell us. But you know what, Pete Buttigieg, I will say this, and I take this back now. A few months ago, or this summer, I was on Steve's show and Pete Buttigieg came up, and I said that I could see how people would view him, because he's such a bullshitter and he seemed kind of good at it, that he could be like a likable, charismatic guy to some voters. I didn't say that I thought he was a likable guy, or that I liked him. I made that clear, but I really do take back that statement after seeing him more. I completely take that back.
No, don't take that. He's downright charming. He is.
You could talk about this quite well, because Steve, you know what? We need to thank the Daily Beast for writing an entire article about Slow News Day show. That's right. They wrote an entire article about Steve Poikonen. They did spell his last name correctly.
Awesome.
I got smeared in the Daily Beast today, y'all. I did. I feel like I can now add that to my list of accomplishments.
You've really made it now.
The guy contacted me, and I fucking, you're from the Daily Beast. I'm pretty sure I know how this is gonna go, but it can't hurt. Like, none of my audience is gonna be like, yo, because of an article in the Daily Beast, I can no longer be a subscriber to your show. But that shit ain't happening. So way back in April, I did a video on my channel, Slow News Day, which I should probably throw in the chat the link to if you're not subscribed to that
Wait,
channel.
real quick, Steve,
should
they
be.
called you too far. They called you far left, and
Yeah,
they
that's right in the
said
title.
confidently. They
Yeah.
said Steve confidently said that Pete was a CIA asset or something. Like,
No, oh yeah. So his angle is Pete Buttigieg a secret agent? Now, nobody said that, like, ever. So right away, he's framing it in a ludicrous sort. I mean, we live in a fucking cartoon. This is cartoonish as shit, yo. Look, way back in April, I did a video called Pete Buttigieg, CIA Democrat, with question mark, because, you know, I wanted people to determine that for themselves. I didn't want to make that assertion. I broke down Pete Buttigieg's, you know, basic history. You know, the son of a man who was training to be a Jesuit priest, who all of a sudden was told, oh no, you need to go to South Bend, Indiana. And by the way, it's cool if you get married now. So that happened. Pete Buttigieg goes to a private Jesuit high school, goes to Harvard, goes to Oxford. While he's in college, he works on a couple of political campaigns, one of them being John Kerry's. Immediately after Oxford, he works for McKinsey and Associates. McKinsey is a consulting firm who, according to the Washington Post, has a $10 million deal with the CIA as of like 2015, but they have a partnership going back much, much further than that. This is pre Pete Buttigieg in the military.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg doesn't enlist in the military until 2009, a couple of years after he was done with McKinsey. Between that time, he was put on, or he joined up with the what is it, the Truman Project, I think. It's a national security clearinghouse. Henry Kissinger was one of the original founding members back in the 70s. It's supposed to be the left version of the Center for National Policy, which is a very far right wing think tank, and it's supposed to be like the left, but Henry Kissinger's involved left. You know, brother or sister organization. At any rate, he was also in the Cohen Group. The Cohen Group is notorious throughout. Pick a destabilized country, the Cohen Group has representation there. They're mixed up with and some incredibly shady law firms. At any rate, in 2009, he joins the Navy Reserves, goes straight into the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, as an intelligence officer, still to this day, active duty intelligence. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it is rare that someone with that kind of pedigree would not be at some point approached by the CIA. Does that mean everyone that works in naval intelligence is a CIA asset or a partner? No, it doesn't. But a small town mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who just so happens to place in identity politics bingo, has been groomed for a number of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
To what? To run as president?
Yeah.
Be president of the United States.
So we have a video of Pasta asking Pete Buttigieg about foreign policy. I didn't get to see it, but he just sent it to me. Steve, I sent it to you in the chat.
I'll pull it up. Thanks for interrupting my story.
Oh, wait, you weren't done?
Am I ever? No, it's I just wanted to like, so the Daily Beast dude took all of this entirely out of concept. And in that video, I haven't watched that video, and I fucking hate watching myself after I put something on wax. Like, that's not my thing. I'm not DMX rolling around listening to myself. That's not how this shit goes down. But I will have to watch it. I like made some joke about his fucking hypnotic blue eyes or some, which of course is in the article, delivered as like, I believe Pete Buttigieg is a CIA asset because he has hypnotic blue eyes. You know, not as me being jovial, right? So yeah, it's just it's I'm not gonna recommend you read it, but I put it on my fucking Twitter anyway because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, Spear the Daily Beast, I'll take it. I will.
Listen, these people are groomed. These Rhodes scholars, Arthur Rhodes, you want to ask who that is? I mean,
oh
they
yeah,
are
no, let's go
found.
down the Rhodes Scholar list. Well, yeah, please tell this story while I pull up your video. Please, please.
Well, I
please.
mean, it's, you know, you talk about the Rhodes, they go out and they find these people at an early age. You know what I'm saying? It's not about blackmail. It's about bribery. You know what I'm saying? And they get a lot of these people, these young, and they groom them. But they have these, these people are connected to like the Jeffrey Epsteins. They have them, you know, for blackmail. They got them blackmail. They got them, you know, acts with, you know, with pedophilia or whatnot. I mean, that's just one part of it. I'm not saying that Pete Buttigieg is part of that clan, but there are a lot like that. And they find them at a young age and they groom these people for these positions of power so they can control. You know what I'm saying? So they can control.
So if I could offer kind of just my idea about how their process works, I think that the victims of those institutions, eventually some of those people become the leaders and actors in those institutions.
I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that totally. Yep. They're groomed for many things. The grooming process, but I mean, you know, Pete Buttigieg, you know, you can believe what you want to believe. I believe 100% the guy's a spook. CIA asset, not just because of what he did with his naval intelligence, you know, career when he was over there, and what he did following the money and tracking the money. They don't give that job to just everybody off the street. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and the things that Steve was talking about, you know, we looked into a lot of those. You know what he was doing. The guy is, he is, and he never ever talks policy. He is like Obama. He's just a platitude salad, and it looks like he's been doing it for so long. Even when I asked him, it was ridiculous.
So we've got that here now, and I'm gonna go ahead and play it for the folks at home.
You are one of two veterans in the race. What would you do day one, foreign policy-wise, if you were elected president?
Well, the first job of the next president is going to be to restore the credibility of the United States. When we have a president who turns his back on our allies, when you have a president who short-circuits our own military justice system to block justice for war crimes and accusations of war crimes, that undermines the very foundation of U.S. credibility and honor around the world. So in addition to the specific foreign policy steps we need to take in order to join with allies on counterterrorism efforts and ensure that we have the right kind of trade for the future that's going to serve Americans well and pull together the country to confront climate change. There's a more basic and fundamental effort, and that is to send the message that America is a country that can be trusted. It will be my top priority in relating with our allies, and a message that will also go to our adversaries around the world.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
What the hell did he say?
See, I was expecting him to say,
what the hell did he say?
Yeah, that's why I chuckled there in the middle of that, man.
The fuck was that? How was that? My first job, foreign policy wise, is to restore the credibility of the morale of the. I mean, seriously. I asked that question.
Climate change, and here's a cover of Nickelback. I'm Pete Buttigieg, and I'm a spook. Like, what the fuck, dude?
He is. And that question, that same question, you know, we got the reason why I asked that is because I wanted to make a video side by side. You know, we were at a Tulsi rally, and a reporter asked, foreign policy wise, what would you do day one? She said, I'm going to sit down with China and Russia, and I'm going to de-escalate our nuclear weapons. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call a summit on day one. And that's what you want. Those are the answers. The other answer that Pete Buttigieg, not just a platitude salad, that's some deep state shit, because you understand the way people's mentality works. You understand the zombies out there that consume people. You understand how to talk to them to make it just seem like you know what you're fucking talking about, but you don't. Control.
And you can see this even in city council people. Like if you sit down with someone on a local level and have a conversation with them, you see this blank process that happens and they're thinking, what do I have to say to be able to hold and or claim more power in this situation? And people that can answer questions the fast enough with that mentality rise higher and higher in the ranks.
Yeah. Listen, one of my city councilmen, he saw me get off the subway the other day. I went walking to him. He did one of these. Oh, sorry, Pasta, I can't talk. I got on the phone quickly. They don't want to talk. They hide. And if they do have to say something, they give you the platitude bullshit. These people are not genuine. They are not for real. They are part of that whole thing that we talked about. Scuba Steve over there. They're deep down the rabbit hole and dark.
You know, Andrew, there's a joke between the four of us that Andrew is our local politics, local government guy, because he's always bringing up city council. But I know that you were just at you're involved with your city council, like going to those meetings. I think it's important to talk about why that is effective, because it is effective. I know Ron Pucone, when he's been on the show, he's talked about that as well. Steve's shaking his head no. Well, when we
I was just I had my hair pulled back for most of it, and my freaking was starting to hurt my head.
Oh.
Well, shaking his luscious locks.
Yeah, I was like, he doesn't agree, but we've talked about this. But in all seriousness, we've talked about a lot of others who've been guests on this show have said that starting at the local level is really an important thing to do. Andrew, I know it's something that you bring up frequently, even though we joke about it. In all seriousness, it's something that you feel passionately about. Initiating some change on a local level first. Pasta, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have any advice for people who are maybe interested in doing that? Again, like I said, part of the vigils is to also inspire people to take action and take some initiative as well.
Well, there's several reasons I want to talk about that. There's two reasons why it's important. Number one, you got to build a bench, right? You know, you want it's a lot easier to get elected if you're going from a city councilman to run for Congress than if you're just taking a shot at Congress. You know, and I have a couple people on the show that are just going right for Senate. You know, I know people who went right for senator, went right for Congress. And I mean, it's going to work sometimes, but for the most part, it would probably be an easier stepping stone. It's a good bench to work on. Today, Shahid Buttar was on the Jimmy Dore show. He's going to be on our show next week, part of our candidate month. I've interviewed him before, but at a Field of Burn Democratic Club meeting that I went to, he came in, he kind of crashed a party, and he spoke, and he said, if you want to think global, you got to act local. And it's a very important thing because there's so much power on the local level. A city can enact a $15 minimum wage. A city can give you municipal internet. Ron Pucone goes down because he's knocking on the door for internet, and he's talking to who? Our city council. So they might not be able to tackle the most important issues. I don't think they'll do a lot for our civil liberties, which is the most important thing. I don't think they'll have a lot to say when it comes to foreign policy because they're not making those decisions. A lot of the time is wasted on small stuff like putting up stop signs and speed bumps and deciding which trees can go here and there and stuff like that. But then they get to tackle some serious issues that could help some big issues like homelessness. You know what I'm saying? They can build bridge housing, right? You know, if it's decided on the local level, and Fiorella, my partner, she's gone to city councils like Koreatown where you have, the people within the community fighting with each other over should a bridge housing be built or not, and they don't want it in their community. They feel it's going to ruin their property value. But meanwhile, people sleeping in front of their apartments is really going to kill it. Now, that's all done on the local level. So it's not the most important thing, but it is certainly a huge thing. And yes, I do go down to my city council to give them hell. And to be honest with you, I wish I wasn't spread out so much across the board because I like to go after some of these assholes over here because you start looking at the money they take. They're taking money from what? It's like that same thing we talked about in California, right? Pasadena, it's the same thing. They're taking real estate investors' money, realtors' money. You know what I'm saying? They're going to vote a certain way, when it comes. They got rid of the bikes. We had remember the local bikes that you get. You use your tap card, you get a bike. Well, Pasadena got rid of them.
You guys got rid of them.
They got rid of them. They also implemented you can't, no parking on the street from 3 to 6 in the morning or from 2 to 6 in the morning. You know why they did that rule? Because they don't want homeless people sleeping in their car out in front of their streets. So yes, there is so much work that could be done on a local level. And I do wish sometimes when people, hey, listen, you got admiration, reach for the stars, go for it. But sometimes it'd be better to run for a local seat. It's a lot easier to win, a city council seat than it would be if you're going for a Congress seat or a senator's seat for that matter. So it's important.
The one of the big ideas we like to promote is municipal disobedience. Because there's a lot that a city can do with its charter and its constitutional responsibilities in most states that would allow it to put up a legal front against institutions like the state level and FERC, like the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, coming in and allowing pipelines or power plants.
Yeah.
And like cities that get water rights and environmental rights often get trampled over to set legal precedent within those states.
Mm-hmm.
And something that hasn't been done yet is having a essentially environmentalist or what have you mayor, a populist mayor that uses the local police force and the power of the city charter to stand against a corporation that's trying to infringe upon local municipal rights like property rights and things like that. So I think that that's a cool idea to try to inspire. So if you're running for local office, a great way to get local police department and fraternity support from them is the idea of lowering what is the actual requirement for city employees to work full time. Because if you lower it down to $32 an hour, a police officer then gets paid an additional 8 hours of overtime. So that's a great way to have them say, hey, I like this guy. He wants to give me more money.
Yeah.
And then ultimately get those people that are active, connected, and influential in the community locally to support you in city council and mayoral runs.
You know what you talked about right there, and here's the thing. Listen, this is important, and I'm gonna digress for 2 seconds and kind of circle the wagons to get to what you're doing. A lot of people who are running for Congress or running for state senator, they don't even know what you talked about right there. You know what I'm saying? They're playing the identity politics, the bingo, and whatnot, and playing party politics, only talking to one kind of base. They don't reach out and outreach. But these local elections and these seats are important. I believe it was Kashama Sawant, right, in Seattle. I think Google or Amazon or somebody put millions for a city council seat, millions against her. The elites are not putting that type of money into those seats to get establishment people elected if it isn't important. So yes, it's important. On another note, what you told me, hey man, if I ever run for city council, I'm gonna come over and talk to me. You can be my campaign manager, my man, because right there, what you said, you're reaching across party lines. We got to think strategically over here too. There's no system. That's the problem with the progressive movement right now. Everybody just starts stepping over everybody. Nobody likes each other at times. We're fighting each other and you don't have the right person running. Now you got all these, what I call fugazi campaigns out there that really don't stand a chance, when if we got our shit organized and we just knew what we had to do to win, we'd be a lot better off.
The big thing's probably the isms, because you have like democratic socialism and then capitalism and then communism and then anarchism. And I think, yeah, the best way to do it is to identify in a post-partisan way where you just say, I support supplying everyone healthcare through some centralized administrative system where the decisions are made on the local level.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's Medicare for all, like the way Bernie summarizes it. But people don't break it down like that.
But, and here's the thing, they got to be strategic too as well. I mean, I can imagine myself, I live really on the border of Judy Chu and Adam Schiff's district. I live in Judy Chu's district, but sometimes I would just love to run against Adam Schiff. And I would think to myself, what would I do when I'm knocking on doors? And I would tell them, hey, man, you love Medicare for all, great. You love the Green New Deal, that's great. But you know what? If we don't get our civil liberties and we don't control our rhetoric online, if it's not transparent, we're not going to get anything, ladies and gentlemen, because they're going to always control the narrative and they're going to put your words down and their words up, and therefore they're going to control the argument. Secondly,
I'll make a deal
integrity.
with you, Pasta.
What's that?
If you run against Adam Schiff, I'll run against Jim Jordan because I'm in the heart of his district.
There you go.
You can take out 2 deep staters in one fell swoop.
Yeah. In these interviews too, as well, Andrew, I ask these questions. I'm going to have Rachel Rossi come she's coming tomorrow Rachel Rossi's running for DA. Now, if you don't know what DA is going on, Jackie Lacey in LA, I'm pretty sure Steve's probably heard of her. She refuses to prosecute cops, and she's taken a lot of dirty establishment money. Well, Black Lives Matter has been protesting against this woman for a long time. She did not get the endorsement from the LA Democratic Club. This time it was given to a guy by the name of George Gascon, who was the San Francisco DA, and now he's running here. The only other person in the mix, her name is Rachel Rossi, and she's a public defender, and she actually wants to talk about criminal justice reform from the mindset of the other side, the public defender's point. Now, my concern is, and I'm going to have her in this studio, and hopefully she's listening. If not, is that how's she going to get the votes for people who are not progressive, who might not call themselves Democrats, whatnot? How are you going to get those votes? And I think sometimes people
ask her to fight for full-time pay for cops starting at $32 an hour or 32 hours worked, because then they get so much more money. And if you do that across the board and have her take that up as a civil issue on top of her campaign, that may be something that really drives it home, because that could be how you get the right wingers with, we want to take care of the police as we make these changes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, that's the whole thing. I asked her, what are you going to do to people who say you're not tough on crime? I didn't know if I got the answer, but, I wanted the political answer. I don't want anybody just, being comfortable with just taking one side's, position. I want them looking across the board. Like you said, I'm never going to vote on the party lines. I'm going to vote on the person lines. And what is that person? If you give me a Republican that stands for the things I like or the things that are most important for me, guess what? I'm voting for that friggin' Republican. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make a difference. If Ron Paul came and ran and he was in my district and he was running against Adam Schiff, I would vote for Ron Paul. Bottom line. So, yeah, I mean, I think what you're talking about right there, and it should be at least explored. And I don't think those conversations, Andrew, are being explored. What you said right there, I don't know if it's known. I mean, Rachel Rossi might say, hey, listen, I can't get too friendly with the cops because the majority of my base is anti-police. You know what I'm saying? They want to see the cops, held accountable for their actions. But either way you look at it, if there's a way you could get both sides, if you could appease both sides, remember, when you're an elected official, you're not just the elected official for just one side. You're the elected official for all sides of that district or that area or that state or that country. So, yes, these are the conversations they need to be having. So you got to get out there, Andrew.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Pasta, on that. So to address some of the comments in the chat, guys, if you do have questions for Pasta, please let us know. We will ask him. There was one question I did want to address. William Martyr here said, hey, if you like pasta, wait till you meet Fiorella. Yes, I actually got to meet her as well. She's wonderful, very, very smart, and she is the co-host with Pasta. She was going to be on this evening, but wasn't able to make it, but hopefully she'll be able to join us one of these evenings or at another date that works well for her. So yes, do check the both of them out.
Everybody loves Fiorella, right? She's not even here. We're talking about her. Great.
Yeah, right.
All right.
So one
I got a great partner.
Tisha T asked us, she said, I know you guys are for Assange, but what hope is there for Chelsea Manning? So number one, of course, we support Chelsea Manning. If you watch, we have an entire video that's all about Chelsea Manning.
It was her birthday vigil.
Her birthday.
Yep, her birthday vigil.
Yes, Sophia Zaldivar, Jason Vermas was on that show. The two are inherently interconnected. So yes, we support Chelsea Manning just as much. And Julian Assange supports Chelsea Manning, of course, and worked very hard to protect her and worked very hard to ensure that she was going to be treated fairly. So yes,
anybody who supports that war, by the way, Taylor, and that's the first thing when I spoke to you, when I gave you your interview, the first thing I saw, when you had the WikiLeaks shirt on and we were at that protest, was the helicopter video. I mean, there should be a module where they have to step inside and actually hear the shots of the gun. They're terrifying. These were journalists.
They don't even make kids watch that in high school. Like, there's no history class that teaches what the U.S. is doing in Afghanistan, because double tap is not an old foreign policy. That is the start and the surface of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It is that video, the Apache helicopter. It's called Collateral Murder. You could find it on WikiLeaks. You could find it just about anywhere. It's really disturbing, and basically you see, it's a pretty long video, but there's like certain like short clips of it.
Yeah.
Basically, you just see two Reuters
Yeah.
journalists be killed, civilians be killed, and that is a video that was leaked by
Yeah.
Chelsea Manning to Julian Assange, and he is actually charged in relation to that specific publication.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is specifically that leak. It has his charges have nothing to do with the DNC leaks, none of that. It has to do with the leaks that came from Chelsea Manning. So the answer to Tisha T is yes, we support Chelsea Manning. Do watch that video. It's archived on our channel, but not
Yeah.
now. You could watch it after or another time. But we talk about her frequently. And the birthday video, the birthday vigil is a really good one that you do want to see. There's quite a few of us on that vigil, but we get in greater depth of her life, what she has sacrificed in her contributions.
And Tisha, if you stick around for the remainder of the vigil this evening, we are going to get into our news portion eventually. And and there's a couple items that specifically relate to Chelsea Manning.
Isn't there, guys, you guys would probably know better than this. I saw a story about a Marine who eventually made it onto that site and pulled a young child out of a car that was shot by one of those helicopter bullets. Do you guys know anything about that? I mean,
there was
I've been
two
trying to look
kids-
for that.
There was two kids that came out of the van because it
Yes.
wasn't even really a true first responder. It was a guy that got a call that stopped with his kids in the minivan. The minivan was open fired upon. When the U.S. got there, the tanks ran over multiple civilian bodies on the way in, which is like already stock standard, not okay. They got in the van and they found that there were two kids inside. They rushed them to the local U.S. medical facility where they sat outside for multiple hours while they said that they were too busy to treat them. After that, they shipped them to a civilian facility where they stopped keeping record as soon as they got handed off, reportedly still alive in critical condition with no treatment after like 12 to 18 hours in U.S. custody and care. And then they just stopped keeping track of what happened to those two kids.
Everybody should have to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should have to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I've spoken about this too much. I don't even want to get into it again. But like I said, you are not allowed on a university level to, or at least in a state or public university, you are not allowed to quote or use WikiLeaks revelations in your work. It's like seriously frowned upon. I've spoken about it way too much. I'm not going to get into it. I don't even like talking about it that much anymore, but that is a fact. So that's why you're not really seeing much of this, because it's very much
The journalistic schools in America are not supporting outfits like WikiLeaks, and
that's
is contributing to the character assassination of Julian Assange in this country.
Yeah, it is.
And that's a
I will
school
have a
board
lot to
solution
share
issue.
about that in months to come. A lot to share about it. And you know what? I know they're not watching this vigil, so I don't care. I'll say it. Yeah, they do not. And also, too, another point is the fact that they also, like we've said many times, and then we'll move on to our news segment of the evening or finish up on Iran real quick. They do infiltrate academic institutions. You have to ask yourself why at a state university, a remember, there's really no such thing, an ex-CIA agent who co-founded the counterterrorism, some counterterrorism department within the State Department, has qualifications to not only be a public relations professor, but also be the chair of the May 4th Commemoration Committee. And when I say May 4th, I'm talking about May 4th, 1970, when students were shot by the government. Why is that person qualified to have that position? I will talk about that more in depth in months to come.
It's so that way it doesn't become an anti-war rally.
Yeah.
Right. So that way they can control that, because that was such a
I
big
know
event
why,
that
but, you know,
still
it's a
stars.
question.
Look
Yeah.
at what has happened to college campuses over the last 50 years. All right. This is something that Cynthia McKinney talked about when she was on my show. Academia has become, and these are Cynthia McKinney's words, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, fucking superwoman, one of my personal heroes. I started voting for her in 2008 and I've written her in. every presidential election since, and I will continue to do so until I find a candidate running for president that matches Cynthia McKinney or is better than Cynthia McKinney. But at any rate, academia has become the new home for COINTELPRO. This is what she tells me. Not only do you have intelligence agencies openly recruiting on the campuses of elite universities, but you have a culture that is created starting at the end of the like the civil rights era and the genuine protest era. You have a culture that's been created that demands division and further division of that division, so that you've got people who are thirsty for knowledge, generally smart to begin with, and highly impressionable, running down with 800 separate labels. And if you don't agree with every single one of those labels, they cannot connect with you. And this is like this for dozens, if not hundreds, of different subgroups of people that have been told that you have to hate your neighbor if your neighbor is not like you.
Yeah. Yeah. George Carlin, right? George Carlin said it best. Keep everybody talking about their differences, and then they get to run off with all the money. Happens to work. Keep doing it. So no. We become
And
as tribal as can be. So
that's why we have a 75 or $750 billion defense budget, and they just cut 750,000 people off of food stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Right.
Do we want to get back to Iran?
Yeah, do we want to continue?
Oh, I thought I was pulling Chelsea's statement.
We can do Chelsea's statement. Have you seen
do
this
that
yet,
first.
Craig?
No.
Nils Melzer released a letter supporting Chelsea Manning recently, and she's actually in a position where she got to respond to it. So it's a
Nils
really cool
Melzer-
situation.
So Nils Melzer, for anybody who is unfamiliar with that, Nils Melzer is just the UN, or not just, excuse me, he is the UN rapporteur on torture, and he basically has written reports. Steve, when Steve starts laughing, I can't keep talking. Okay. I'm gonna, okay, this is gonna be a repeat of what happened a few weeks ago, Steve, if you keep this up.
Why is Steve laughing? What's
I'm
funny?
really sorry. My wife was fucking with me.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Ah!
So anyways, in all seriousness, Nils Melzer is the UN special rapporteur on torture who has written reports about Julian Assange's conditions, saying that he is without a doubt being subjected to torture. These are formal reports. The UK government has to respond to them. They are obligated to respond to them, and also to issue an impartial investigation into this torture. They have failed to address the letter. They have failed to issue an impartial investigation. So this report is really significant, and the report, or the statement that Steve is pulling up right now, is Chelsea Manning's response to the letter.
Hey, Christy, do you want to take this one?
Sure.
Get it, Christy.
Let me pull this over here. So do you want me just to read it from where you're at, or does it? I haven't actually.
I
seen
mean,
this yet.
we can set it. Taylor pretty much set it up. I should probably scroll down to where the actual statement is.
Yeah, let's
Here
get
we
the
go.
actual statement. There you go. So my long-standing objection to the immoral practice of throwing people in jail without charge or trial for the sole purpose of forcing them to testify before a secret government-run investigative panel remains strong. Nearly every other legal system in the world condemns coercive confinement and long ago replaced secret grand juries with public hearings. I am thrilled to see the practice of coercive confinement called out for what it is: incompatible with international human rights standards. Regardless, even knowing I'm very likely to stay in jail for an even longer time, I'm never backing down. Sorry, everybody, I've lost my voice this week, but there's something I just, Chelsea Manning, through this whole process this year, has just been so fucking strong
Yeah.
and just refusing to back down. And now that she's being financially tortured, in my opinion, by being charged $1,000 a day, that's not swaying her either. And I don't know if the United States government can find a way to sway Chelsea Manning.
Yeah, and we talked about this extensively on her birthday vigil. But I mean, she has released a number of statements over the last couple of years that are just punk as fuck, and like, oh dude, they're so great. Like, content creators should be reading these to their audiences on the regular. Like, I don't do it enough. And Jeremy Hammond has one of the most epic statements that I have read in a very, very long time, about it was the first thing that he was able to do and get out right after he was transferred from minimum security in Oklahoma to the exact same facility that Chelsea Manning's incarcerated in. They're calling everyone they can get from those leaks and from the Stratfor leaks into the Eastern District. Like, this is something that goes way beyond Julian Assange. And not only that, the simple fact of the Julian Assange up for extradition in the first place puts the remaining veneer of the First Amendment on the fucking chopping block.
So to quote cypherpunks, Julian said throughout the book, but specifically in the first chapter, talking about this situation, no amount of force can solve a math problem. And what that refers to is using encryption as a form of communication and a way to hold files in storage that no amount of physical force in reality can unencrypt that data as long as it's encrypted strong enough. And they even talked about the potential use of torture to try to solve these types of math problems and the use of force that they have there. So even as early as 2010, this was actually called out, this exact situation, in word and writing by Julian. Because I think it was on one of his episodes on RT where he said, no amount of force can solve a math problem.
So we are just Steve. All right, guys. So there's a chat. There's a group chat that nobody can see except for the 5 of us, whoever's on the show, and we are just, we're not laughing about the subject matter right now. We are just laughing about this being one of Andrew's favorite quotes, and that he should get a tattoo of it. That's what we're laughing about.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Smart quote.
Where's this streaming from again? Is this on YouTube or?
It's on
Yeah.
For Assange channel.
Yeah, tonight it's
on-
streaming on my channel too.
I'm going to actionforassange.com.
I don't think it's on our website. I don't.
Yeah,
think
you
it's
gotta go to
on
the YouTube
But
channel.
I looked at Taylor's Twitter and her YouTube channel is not tagged on here. Like, how am I going to find her?
Yeah, I didn't. I probably should have done that.
No, we're on Twitch.
Oh, and Twitter
we're on-
keeps dead linking the link to this channel. I updated it and seriously, it's January 8th. I'm gonna go check right now. If I have to update it again, it'll be the 3rd time this year that I've had to do that.
But no, so we stream on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, thanks to Jason Carney and people of the 99%. Occasionally on my Facebook page as well. But I did just sign us up for Rockfin when we had talked about it originally and submitted a request to be a content creator. So I put all that in there
Dead
too.
link. Sorry.
Got it. Like, I'm just looking down now at the chat over there on YouTube, and I can see Johnny's trolling me over here too. My partners, they're trolling me. Thanks, Johnny. I love you guys.
Johnny's watching. I met him too. Hi,
Yes.
Johnny. Yeah, I met you in LA. He's your camera guy.
Yeah. Well, he's
Or
a
your
partner.
tech
He's a partner. He's he's our engineer. He's
Okay.
our producer. Johnny does so much stuff. Johnny, we call him Johnny Tsunami. My piece of advice to you guys is everybody should have a Johnny Tsunami. He really took our show to the next level. He's a lot younger than me, so he's a little bit more hip. and he knows what the kids like out there. So he really took the show to the next level. But that's what it is. It's a group effort, and you guys got a good group over there. So keep it going. He even did this little thing over here and put this up behind me right there, so you can all go to Yo Pasta and try to get me to 3,000 by tonight, because I'm almost there.
Yeah, guys, make sure if you have not already, if you're not already following Pasta, please do at Yo Pasta. And then also follow the Convo Couch on Twitter as well. Subscribe to their channel. Yeah, please do that. But yeah, hi Johnny. I remember you. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We do need a Johnny, actually, because our production value, we own it. It's not, the greatest, but some people like our kind of underground look. So
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out how we want to.
I'm never not gonna be down home. Like, I mean, we could try, but I'm not convinced that it would come across sincere. I would love to have like different background though, because what you can see right now is the wall that my 7-year-old decided to draw all over when he was like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. It's what it's what I got right now. But yeah, a little bit production value couldn't hurt.
I mean, like, I can show you guys real quick really quick. I'm gonna, if you take a look, this is what our studio looks like. Is a couch with a green screen. You know what I'm saying? It's a little 11 by 11 foot wall. There's a Russian clock over there. We got time in Moscow. You can see it. And
is that for when you call Putin to get your news updates?
Yeah.
What's that?
Is that for when you call Putin to get your news updates? Because we're all Russian agents.
We're Russian bots, and
I'm actually going to get hoodies to pass out to people in DC that says "Friendly Neighborhood Non-State Intelligence Actor," and that has like the WikiLeaks logo on the front, just to own that slogan.
You
That's
should.
Mike Pompeo.
But I'm currently actually sitting in my work right now. Like, I've been in this same chair for like 14 hours today so far.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, you never listen. None of us know where this is going. None of us know what's going to happen. I mean, the formula for mainstream media is it's got to go. It's got to give. They keep losing people left and right. And a lot of these, production people, these people with a lot of money, they're funding, Alyssa Milano gets a huge amount of funding to do what we're doing over here, what you guys are doing. So we have all the forces working against us, but we never know where things are going to go. And I always say, when I started this with Fiorella, we had a little bit of an acting background. We were out here to act. We moved away from it. But I said our appearance, our location is so important. That's why we kind of named it the Convo Couch. It was, it was more about the production value. We wanted to just show a little bit more than the rawness. Not to say that the rawness doesn't work, but I look at RT, and you guys you went and saw Lee Camp, right? You look at RT, the way it is, the energy you get from RT, the music, it's moving, the visuals, whatnot. Johnny's always in this lab. We lock him down here sometimes. We handcuff him to the chair until he gets the work done. But
God,
it goes a long way. And if you can find somebody, not everybody has to have a voice and be in front of the camera. They want to do this stuff. So if you find somebody in the movement who wants to join you guys, just grab cards at events, because a little bit of love on that end goes a long way.
So the RT Studios, when we were there, it was probably like one of the coolest places I've ever been into, or at least in a long time.
It felt very hip. Yeah, we got to have makeup and hair done, and we got some cool. We should have had our mugs ready, Andrew.
I gave mine to my dad. I give all my mugs like that to him, as like because he's like this old conservative man drinking out of like a free Assange and redacted.
Did your dad see Lee Camp on Fox News?
I don't know. Probably when it came out a long time ago.
Video, by the way.
When he got thrown out? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
But at one point we were sitting there, and I was on the couch, and I was just like staring around because we were waiting on everybody to come out and get us. And I realized that what looked like a halogen sign was really a projector on the background. And I probably sounded like an idiot because it was the big green RT symbol that you can see walking in. It's coming from a projector and isn't like backlit on there. And I was like, whoa, that's a projector. And everyone around the desks and shit was just laughing at me. It was awesome.
Favorite network. I got RT streaming live. I go for the live because I want to see the whole production value, the way it goes, their little promos and whatnot. And, if your audience, if you haven't watched RT, get on there. It's awesome because pretty much their whole formula I think it's really positive. I think it's really working. I think they're getting a lot of new viewers, but pretty much it's a news show for a half hour, then a documentary for a half hour, then a political show for a half hour. They're only commercials or promos of their other shows. I think they have one regular commercial, and that's on during Larry King. I think that's Russian Airlines. But other than that, the formula they have, and once again, their Rupley, their music, their graphics, it's so eye-catching. It's entertaining. It's mellifluous. It's definitely moving forward. Do you guys see a better network than RT? I mean, TYT. What a waste of all that money, that Katzenberg money. Go get a production guy. Go get something for your production. Your production stinks. Nonetheless, that you keep Emma vigilant and you get rid of Ron and Graham. That alone sucks that you can't even keep your talent. But get a production value.
My hope in trying to get the Free Assange Vigil put even just in clips on other shows and people streaming with it is to create this idea of like cross-channel syndication, because not everybody has a live stream going on at the same time. So instead of having to build a TYT network, everyone has their own studios in their garages and has maybe an hour of well-produced shows.
Yeah,
and if every channel takes the initiative to show an hour of everyone else's channel once a week, that would help the whole community share audiences and grow from the bottom and build like a grassroots foundation that doesn't have to have central studios.
I hear you.
Now, Andrew, that's someone talking who doesn't have that Katzenberg money. You're not thinking like a billionaire, and that's wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, Andrew, you always really do have good ideas when it comes to this stuff. I will say. I mean, you always
I just smoke a lot of weed. Like I just think a lot.
I smoke a lot of weed too, but I'm kind of like you when it comes to the convo couch. I got a production hat on all the time. A lot of conversations with Johnny. Hey, Johnny, can you make this happen? Johnny, can we do this? Fee, what do you guys think about that? I mean, my personal responsibility, and a lot of people have to do this when they have independent media, is wear different hats. And there's got to be a producer hat we put on, because you got to step outside the box and just think more than what's happening in front of the mic. What can we do? How can we make it more fun? How can we get more eyes on the truth telling? And I've thought about the co-op thing and hooking people up and seeing how we can do that. I think that would be beneficial down the road. So keep us in mind.
Yeah,
for sure.
We will. Again, RT is definitely a great network. Now, are they, there's some debate. Are they independent? No, I wouldn't say so. They're funded by the Russian government, sure. However, at the same time, number one, their coverage is really excellent. However, they're upfront about that. They are upfront that they are funded by the Russian government and that's where they get their money from. And many of the people that work there have spoken out and said, we have complete editorial freedom to say what we want to say. So I see them as a very, very reliable news source. I get a lot of my news there. If I'm not getting it from YouTube if I'm not getting it from YouTube, and I want to read something, it's, Mint Press, but really I go to RT first. I really do.
Yeah.
Great work. And that's the difference between our corporate media in the US, is that they pretend that they don't have these different ties or special interests when they absolutely do. And even with independent media on YouTube, I mean, sure, they, a lot of people have a certain perspective, but nobody hides that. Everybody says, I'm a progressive, I'm anti-war, I'm pro-Assange, I'm whatever. And nobody really even has to disclose that. But, they do. And I think that's the major difference, because people like the New York Times and CNN pretend that they don't have this bias when they do.
Yeah. I mean,
how much of an indictment on the U.S. media is it that Russia television has an American satellite network that is producing the kind of shows and interviewing the kind of people and having the kind of content out there and available to everyone that presents a legitimate opposing set of narratives and facts to the entire corporate media? And that includes all of the websites and all of the other independent channels that are owned by fucking Comcast.
Yeah.
And RT doesn't have a building. Just real quick, RT has a second floor suite in a small building.
There's no signage
3 blocks
outside.
away from the White House.
Actually very hard to locate without the address. Yeah, that was
I
really
slept in the
interesting to me
parking
too.
garage underneath the RT studios because that's the cheapest hotel room.
They got a small, like a little studio in LA, small one in like a not too big of a studio in Washington D.C. They got little hubs, what we're talking about. And somebody on your chat even said Crosstalk is the best on RT, is the best debate show on YT. Is that what it say? YT?
On YouTube, yeah.
On YouTube. Thank you so much. I mean, I watch it off the telly from YouTube and I stream it too when it's live, but it is. Peter Lavelle is one of my favorite guys. He's a conservative. But, you know, I mean, and that's why
Peter Lavelle is black-pilled as fuck. Like, Peter Lavelle is like, he comes from a right-leaning perspective.
He's very fair.
Yeah. But that's the thing. That just shows you that we don't have to be so friggin' tribal. You know what I'm saying? This is a conservative who so many views I align with, you know, on my favorite show over here. And that's the whole thing, is that they bring in different, and he always has a neoliberal on there, or an establishment Democrat, a conservative, whatnot. So I mean, and it's crazy that RT is kicking mainstream media's ass, you know?
Yeah, you're never going to see the perspective that RT offers you on mainstream media. If you do, you see it once and they never come back.
Right, because there's, you know, repercussions for speaking out and speaking the truth. You either get fired. But here's another thing that I will say, and I've said this before. We have to be aware of certain outlets that are infiltrating into independent media. And maybe I shouldn't use the term infiltrating, but, you know, a lot of people are quick to kind of get behind this or like this new show or that new show. When you look at their parent publication, it's just something to keep in mind. I'm being very vague here, but I just think it's important. I think that I know my co-hosts know what I'm talking about.
We didn't have to talk about the Jeffrey Katzenberger check to TYT. Come on, guys. We didn't have to go there.
No, I think it's more a reference to Crystal Ball and The Hill or whatever the hell she does.
Oh,
it's a reference to it's a reference to The Hills. I'm just curious as to how they're getting away with what they're.
It was just obscure enough for like people like us to.
Because at the end of the day, what that show is going to do is tell everybody to vote for a Democratic candidate.
Are you talking about the Crystal Ball?
Yeah.
The
Hill.
Yeah.
They're infiltrating independent media. That we know that they do this. They did it with mainstream media.
So look, ultimately you can have all of these conversations that they have on the show, but when it comes down to crunch time, mark my fucking words, they will tell you to vote for the Democrat. They will reinforce the two-party narrative. They will keep people actively excited about being in a party that hasn't represented them, that doesn't represent them, and that won't represent them.
Doesn't The Hill have more Republican conservative commentators and contributors? I believe that what's his name? Joe Solomon, or I can't remember his name is Solomon. He wrote for The Hill. He did a lot of great work on the Ukraine. He's more of a right wing leaning type of personality.
I think you're right. I think you're correct. There are more right leaning people, but I could be wrong. They report on a wide variety of stuff. Like some of their things that they report on, I'm like, why should I even care about this? Because some of it could be on the lines of like entertainment, which I just think is ridiculous. I don't want to hear about that. Nobody should care about that stuff.
Look, let's do this for a second though, man, because the Young Turks' second half of their show is a fucking pearl clutching Hollywood fucking fan star fucker, just nonsense. And this is supposed to be, and I can't stress this enough, cable news on the internet guy will tell you with a straight face that they're the home of the progressives.
Yeah. Well, they were until they took that money. They took the 20 mil, and they just changed their whole conversation.
That's how power is built, though. You step out of the mainstream media, you know what's going to build you a popular audience, and then you sell out at the end of the day. It's like how Joe Biden's speech about, they won't let me prostitute myself until I'm 40. It's the same thing. Like you have to wait until you have that base support, and then you prostitute yourself out and take the money. And there's enough people that won't care about the money because they believe in you previously,
Yeah.
that you use that name and reputation.
Yeah.
one of
Sensationalism,
our
it's alive and well too. And let me tell you something, I will not sell out and take that money, but I will listen to the offer. So
I'll record it and release it live, and it'll be awesome.
and you got this guy Flick Off too. He just said something. Operation Mockingbird. This guy is Flick Off. Please subscribe to the Convo Couch if you haven't. I love this what this guy is saying in your chat. You guys got a great audience here. Very educated. A lot of good things to say.
Do you check out Jason Burmis at all? Like, just to give him a plug, do you know who that is?
No, but I will check him out. Jason Burmis.
He is the guy who made Loose Change. If you know.
Flick Off say?
What's that?
What did Flick Off say in the chat?
Oh, he said something before he talked about RT being the best debate show on YouTube, and he said Operation Mockingbird.
Oh,
instilling CIA assets in the MSN. Now, let me tell you something. As deep as it gets, Jeffrey Katzenberg is attached to all those guys that go deep, deep down the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? All those guys from CAA. Remember when Tulsi Gabbard walked away from the DNC? It was people from CAA. His name was I think it was Michael Kives who wrote that letter and said, "You're persona non grata." And that was WikiLeaks. Again, WikiLeaks gave it to us. Thank you so much. They gave us the catalyst, the connection to go, wait a second, who's really running the show here? Hollywood is tied to the deep state.
I'm gonna give you a book to read, Pasta, if you haven't already. This came out a while ago. It's titled Finks. And then the subtitle is How the CIA Tricked the World's Best Writers. The author's name is Joel Whitney. It is while we're on the subject of Mockingbird, it covers like pre-Mockingbird to current. And the author even admits in a couple of different interviews that tricked is the wrong verb for the title, but it's the one that
programmed
they away with. You know, because in the book they explore just how frequent and how many people in news take the offer and are like, oh, yes, of course, there's a mystique around I'm an undercover intelligence asset, you know, kind of thing about it for these sycophantic pieces of garbage. Are selling out the entire citizenry for not just access, but you know, promotion and prestige. There's a specific ladder to climb for being an intelligence asset.
Yeah, listen, they don't have to trick people. They just prey on their weaknesses. You know what I'm saying? The sycophants, like you said, they're captivated by sensationalism that no matter what they do, they're going to still stick behind their person, their platform, their news channel, whatever the case may be. And Mark Sloboda, who used to be on Crosstalk quite a bit, he's been a guest and a regular on our show. We do it on Tuesday nights. We call it Late Night Foreign Policy Junkies. But he has talked about very adamantly about how the CIA brags about having a mole or a plant or a cell or a sycophant or somebody working for them in every single major outlet and media across the globe. You know what I'm saying? And that is where once again, if you control information, you control everything.
Well, and this is a great time to throw in the William Casey quote, the director of the CIA in 1981, who said, "We will know our disinformation campaign is complete when nothing the American public believes is true." That's where we're at. Look, and I say this fairly frequently, but it's Pasta's first day. Manufacturing consent was written over 30 years ago.
Yep.
Consent has been manufactured. If it wasn't, if it wasn't manufactured within the realm of the American public, largely prior to the ink being dry on the Patriot Act, it certainly was afterwards. What the media does Their role now is to manufacture confusion. And as long as we can stay in this state of oversaturation with complete and total nonsense that nobody should ever fucking care about, even once as a joke, maybe, all right, sure, I kind of do want to know what celebrity bleaches her asshole. I do, kind of, but like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to look for that. But you know, like, but I mean, this is the kind of shit that's just out there. And so you're in a state
with the counter reinforcing propaganda too, where you have the Russiagators walking.
There was a follow-up to the bleached asshole thing. There was, I promise. I was headed that direction. I would, but go ahead, man. Go ahead.
You have Russiagators walking hand in hand with QAnoners about the same foreign policy decisions, about the same decisions that Donald Trump are making, stopping short of did Trump collude with Russia, and everything happening behind the scenes there, and just throwing out nugs of information and things like that that are ultimately irrelevant to the situation, that the other side can attack from another angle, so it narrows the frame of debate down to this little square. So that's why I think the independent media is so important, to try to step away from those mainstream media articles that create that like Russiagate horse race nonsense. Because if TYT hadn't pushed that, it wouldn't even be a thing that the independent media even talked about. But because they chose to run it as hard as they did, it infected.
They didn't choose that. They were paid to.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what, a big point of it too, not to take any responsibility away from media and those who push false narratives, but there's also, you know, YouTube makes it very easy for people to not have any incentive to report on certain things, and they incentivize safe topics. So
Yeah.
too, you know, I mean, if you talk about, you know, Jeffrey Epstein, for example, I mean, your stuff is going to get monetized. Some people have done really well getting a lot of followers because of it. I know you said that you guys started covering that and were able to get a boost in subscribers, and then it kind of plateaued for a while. They catch on to it, of course, and they throttle the numbers. So
yeah, I mean, they are classic at doing it. Like I said today, I mean, we talked about the first topic, I think, was the smears. We talked about Ricky Gervais, and as we are doing this stream, YouTube is they got to be watching us by now. They're putting up warnings that they're going to shut down the stream because they sense something of a copyright material. Now, first of all, we can enter into that whole arena, what is public domain and what is not, what the public has a right to know, and anything political, first of all, as long as I'm doing commentary on it, it should be free game, including the debates. One of those people on that stage could be one of the leaders of the free world, and yet they're trying to control that information themselves. But then we talked about, I voted for Hillary Clinton. We went over that whole thing, mocking people online, laughing at them, showing the old Clinton videos, whatnot, you know. And now, after we finish on up, we pretty much get a copyright strike or a warning that we might get one, and they said they're not going to put up our live stream from today. That was the first time it happened. And what did we talk about? We just talked anti-establishment things. We didn't talk about anything serious. We didn't talk about telling people to arm themselves and go to the street and start eating the rich, even though I think they should start eating the rich. But we talked about simple subjects today. And what did they do? They closed the nozzle. They throttled the information. They're controlling the information. And all I can think about is the lady who owns, who's the president of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, and she wrote checks to Hillary Clinton's campaign, big ones. So what information do they want out there, and what information do they want to keep quiet? And they're doing it big time with us. So
we get attacked all the time.
You will.
When we had Dario Hunter on, and I positioned the question about civil disobedience to him. And as soon as I finished my question, it's just hard cut. He's like, I never thought about that. Well, maybe. And then stream end. And I was like, well, damn, like that was
we
100 to
call
0.
The NSA agent tasked to monitor the chat and fuck with the show, Kevin. So if you ever, you know, like if at any point something goes wonky, you can blame Kevin.
So I'm going to steal this next segment from Graham Elwood.
Our budget too.
Hold on.
Did we get a great budget, PR budget? from
I'm
or
stealing
hired
off.
by a PR firm?
Real quick, the other day, Graham did this. So if you are a CIA, NSA, FBI, or any other alphabet soup or foreign intelligence agency member watching us, please take the information that we say seriously. Take it, get your coworkers to watch it, to show them, to get them to monitor this too, and try to get little chat groups going on inside the intelligence agencies sharing this information if you really are watching us. Think about what you're doing for a living and some ways and avenues that you could get things out into the domain of WikiLeaks and other institutions such as that. So I think that's a little important plug to put out there for those guys, because they're honestly at the end of the day just paid to do terrible things. So if we can show them that there's a little bit of hope in the world out there, why not ask them to pitch in a little bit?
Yeah, we really depend on people who are inside the system to become whistleblowers. We really need that. Julian said that. We really, really need people to consistently be, blowing the whistle and providing information to WikiLeaks.
Yeah,
One
I was
important
in the middle. I was somebody arguing with me the other day about like, well, how can you trust this information when it's coming from people who are inside, an obviously corrupt system? Look, you don't get to be a whistleblower unless you're in the belly of the beast and you see the light. Like that's literally the qualification. Is
So
you
Kyle Kalinske put out an all call the other day for people to get information to Ken Klippenstein about the U.S. government's authorization for the
I've
use
got
of,
that article too. I can
yeah,
pull it.
if you could, if I'm trying to transition into that a little bit. Basically, the U.S. military is allowed to kill people for civil disruptions on the border, which is a border crossing. So we now have a border akin to the state of Israel lining up with like Jordan and those other nations, where they can just kill on sight for crossings. So I think that that's something that's really important. According to Kyle Kalinske, in response to that, the U.S. government started classifying those kinds of things. Ken
The ir-
Klippenstein wrote an article about it.
and the irony is that this article is on TYT's website, and it really is like the only place that this article exists. So as much and as often as I accurately describe cable news on the internet guy and his network, this article exists there because they hosted King Clipperstein. So we are uh, better off for that, because this is some insane shit. And it's right, I did follow up on that. These documents were classified immediately, like within days after this article being released.
Do you want to talk about maybe what this?
Oh, I was going to say, I'll read it real quick if you'd like me to. If you scroll
Yeah,
down to
go
the
for
civil
it.
disobedience section, like the actual article.
There we go. I think.
The documents obtained by TYT show the military's authorization to exercise lethal force extends to cases of civil disturbance. These documents do not define this term. However, the Army Field Manual publication, Civil Disturbance Operation, stresses the importance of non-lethal measures. In the past, commanders were limited to the type of force that they could apply to quell a riot. Riot batons, control riot agents, and lethal force were often used. Today, there is a wide array of non-lethal weaponry available to the commander that extends his forces along with the force continuum. Continuum. The operations order attained by TYT describes at least 3 cases in which lethal force may be authorized to use at the border. To protect personnel engaged in civil disturbance operations, barbed wire installation operations, and mobile surveillance camera operations. So I just think we can keep going if you want, but I think that's something super important to point out.
This next little bit right here is kind of important. The civil disturbance operation section states leaders in the position of platoon sergeant and higher who are 10 to 20 meters behind the formation that is engaged in civil disturbance operations at a port of entry are authorized arming level 3 with weapon status red. This lethal capability provides for protection for military police soldiers in the riot control formation who are equipped with only shields and riot batons. Lethal force authorization for civil disturbance, whatever the hell we want it to mean.
And this is on the tails of pre-crime being rolled out, because that's officially, if I believe it's officially started, to where they can use social media or any other aspect of your life that they've been monitoring to determine if in the future you will commit a crime. So it is the foreign policy version of pre-war, which is, or the domestic policy version of pre-war, which is our foreign policy.
What was that? The Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report?
We have pre-crime now as of January 1st.
They know you're going to commit a murder.
Have you covered this yet, Pasta? The pre-crime?
No, we have not.
Holy shit, it's real. It is. Way back in I want to say August, I did a show on it because Whitney Webb had written an article out of Mint Press discussing it, and the way that it just sort of happened, and Whitney discusses it in her article a little bit better than I'm going to right now. But prior to the day where we had 2 mass shootings in one day, you know what I'm talking about? And it turned out one of them really wasn't a mass shooting. It was just a dude shooting his sister, and he clipped a couple other people. Yeah, they were trying to make it some sort of, fucking over sensationalize it. About 3 weeks prior, Bill Barr was speaking. Attorney General Bill Barr was speaking. CIA lawyer Bill Barr was speaking, and he was talking about, wouldn't it be? It would be handy for law enforcement to have the tools necessary to stop mass shootings before they happen. Like, let's say there's multiple mass shootings in one day. Well, we would like to be able to have the capability to prevent that 2 days after that day, the 2 mass shootings in one. That Monday, Trump comes out and says, we need law enforcement to be able to scour the deepest, darkest corners of the internet in order to stop these crimes before they start. A couple of weeks later, it was announced that through the Justice Department, a new division was going to be created that did just that.
It doesn't work either. That's the thing, is it does not work. That's like the same argument as in we need to have access to everybody's phones and surveil everybody's phones because that way we will be safer. That has been proven false time and time again. It's a lie just so they can monitor us. And that's no longer a conspiracy theory. This is directly tied into the One versus Five Eye campaign, Susie Dawson's campaign, taking on the Five Eyes and holding them to account in a court of law. Specifically, it's all related to that. She's written about this. We know from their own source documents that they do these things. And the intention is not to keep us safe, but it's always used as an excuse to do these things and to get away with them. It's ridiculous to think that, terrorists and other people do not know that that their communications are being monitored. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. They're not having these conversations.
Well, it's been proven what they're doing has been proven to not help with anything.
That's what I mean. We know this doesn't work.
System is going to turn into is a way to get rid of political dissidents and expand for-profit prisons.
Yeah. I mean, it's also to expand the surveillance state by using fear too as well. I mean, Benjamin Franklin once said, those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety, deserve neither liberty or safety themselves. But that's the whole thing. They got everybody duped. They got everybody scared. You talk about, things like the Patriot Act, which the Democrats just extended, which is another form of going in and snooping in. And, they're going to use every single excuse before it is, hey, we can prevent this kind of stuff if we do this and we do that. No, you can't, unless it's a Minority Report, and you get the balls to see what's in the future, those things that Tom Cruise used to find out. You're just forget about it, But
And
Those
this
were
is
conversational thetans. That's what they were.
beating the
That's a
surveillance
Scientology
state.
joke for the people who didn't get that.
So to
What did you
define
say,
it,
Steve? Wait, can you repeat?
Conversational thetans.
Sometimes this stuff
See,
takes a second.
In Scientology, look, you got to remember that Xenu blew up
Oh.
the world with an atomic bomb 80 billion years ago. And
so
I'm not gonna
anyways,
go into that.
the biggest thing on a policy-based level that can solve, at least in part, global surveillance is municipal broadband. And that's why I support that campaign so hard, because a key part of the surveillance state is the ability to control the infrastructure upon which the internet functions. So if you have the ability to remove it from multinational internet service providers and put it directly in the hands of a few 100,000 people that through government programs can fund the actual creation of those microprocessors in their community, so there can be no backdoors in it unless those factory workers put them in, that would be how you can fight back against the surveillance state in an ultimate ending fashion, is encryption and municipal internet.
Yeah.
Encryption is the number one way. The problem with it is a great way to do it because it's a lot easier. Here's another quote from Cypherpunks, I believe. It's a lot easier to encrypt than to decrypt. But the problem that we're running into right now is that there's a profit motive. There's a monetary motive with surveillance. Basically, these agencies can make a profit off of accessing your data. And in order to make more money and increase profits, you have to have growth. And the only way to have growth is to expand the scope of people that you are targeting and surveilling. So eventually, everybody will be surveilled and will be surveilled. I don't want to use the term targeting because that means something a little bit different, but everybody will be surveilled beyond just the mass surveillance that we are all already subjected to. Again, right now is a great time for everybody that's new to pitch the 1 versus 5I campaign. Please follow this campaign on Twitter at the number 1, the letters VS, the number 5, the letter I. We also just launched sort of a branch of this campaign. Protect Susie, the Protect Susie campaign. Also follow that on Twitter. Also go to protectsusie.com and sign the open letter. Read the open letter. Sign it. Susie Dawson is an investigative journalist and activist who was targeted in her home country of New Zealand. And when she was left with no other choice, again, when there was no other options available, Susie had to eventually seek asylum in Russia. However, it wasn't initially Russia. She went to Germany first. And unfortunately, being that Germany is a NATO country, the targeting that she was experiencing followed her to Germany. And she is being represented by at least 2 attorneys that I know of right now. Craig Tuck, he's an international human rights attorney. He is also a member of Julian Assange's legal team. And she is also represented by a Russian asylum attorney. But she does need our help, and signing this open letter is a great way to help out. And this letter is addressed to different organizational bodies who can really take some initiative to help her situation. So please do check out protectsusie.com and also 1 versus 5I.com. I've done several interviews on this. And I've posted them and spoken about them on the vigils.
I think it's the first time I've ever been involved in a show that talked about 3 Craigs: Craig Murray, Craig Tuck, and Craig Pasta Jardula.
Yeah.
I love you guys. This is a lot of fun here right now over here. Craig crazy over here.
Yeah. So make sure that, make sure you guys do check out that campaign and follow the new Twitter account. Guys, do we want to touch on some news? It is literally going on 1 a.m. in Ohio, but that's okay. I know we have a lot.
I got to roll out of here, guys.
Do you? Okay. Hey, you know what? I want to thank you so much for coming on the vigils such short notice. We wish Fiorella could be here with you.
We'll get it back on for you
next time. But thank you so much. If you could leave us off with some final thoughts and let everybody know some of the new initiatives you have with the Convo Couch and where they can find you as well. And thank you so much again for coming on. And it was nice meeting you as well.
The pleasure is all on this side of the table, as they said in that movie Office Space. And I want to thank you guys for having me on. This was great. This was a lot of fun. Obviously, I am Craig Pasta Jardula, one of the co-hosts of the Convo Couch with my partner, Fiorella Isabel, and Johnny Sue, who's also our third partner, who's our engineer extraordinaire. You can find us on our Convo Couch YouTube, our Convo Couch Facebook, our Convo Couch Twitter, our Convo Couch Twitch, our Convo Couch Periscope, and of course, our Convo Couch Rockfin. More importantly, right now, to be the eyes and ears of the people out there and all the people watching, we want to go out and hit the campaign trail and go to these primaries and cover them. So we do have a GoFundMe. You can find that. The links are everywhere. There's a little video. And if you can help us out, of course, we have a Patreon. And just join us on the Convo Couch. Tomorrow, we're going to have an interview with some candidates. We're going to have on Lauren Ashcraft and Rachel Rossi, who's running for DA in California. And we're going to be interviewing all the candidates, as many as we can, for the month of January on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you want to be like Andrew and pay attention to local politics, watch the Convo Couch.
Pasta, I want to let you know I'm in Iowa, in Des Moines, and I will be out doing the Iowa caucus. So if you get to Des Moines, let me know. Maybe
we got to get your information because, we're trying to stretch our dollar. So the more places we can stay at, if you got a couch for the Convo Couch, or a floor, that means we can save money and get on to the next location. So yes, we're trying to, Valerie Flanagan?
I don't know.
No, I don't think she's in Des Moines. I think she's somewhere else. We have a couple people who watch our show, but yeah, hey, listen, it's that whole networking thing. When we go to Ohio, we got to go see you, Taylor. We go up when we're to California. Hey, Steve, we're coming up to see you. Andrew, where do you live?
I'm up by Cleveland.
All right. Well, we
I'll
don't
drive basically anywhere. You can't get me.
We're not going to Cleveland. Doesn't make we're going to skip Cleveland. That's for sure and stuff. So
I won't be in Ohio for too much longer, though.
Where you going?
I'm going actually your way.
Cali?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, if you do happen to take the Convo Couch up towards Santa Cruz, by all means, come to the studio where I shoot the show. It's a converted post. It was a former post office. Before it was a post office, it was a brothel. Brothel got torn down. But the building now is a converted post office. It's a recording studio. It's a wood shop. There's a screened-in porch out back.
I'd love to check it out.
Yeah,
sure.
It's fantastic. It is.
For sure.
And you know what, Steve? You and I, too, will be able to do shows together, too, if you want. I realize
5-hour drive, but if I've got reason to go to LA, man, yeah, absolutely.
Are you moving to LA, Taylor?
Yes. I actually wasn't sure I wanted to make that public, but it is now.
So. You're the one who said I'm moving out your way. I didn't ask at first. You've been exposed. You exposed yourself. Well, that's awesome.
At 1 a.m. we'll say just about anything.
The reason.
We're in LA.
I'm not sure yet. The reason being, because I want to do independent journalism, of course. Where I'm at, there is nothing going on. There is just a dead spot. You could cover local food drives maybe, but unless you're, in the heart of Cleveland, which I don't want to be in Cleveland, there's really nothing going on. And even there's not a whole lot. So it's just really, really difficult to really be covering things and covering the things that I want to cover. I also have family out there. So I've been visiting that part of the country my entire life. And the weather's a lot better too.
Oh yeah, I can bet that. If I was by you, all I would be doing was just stalking Dennis Kucinich. That's all you can do.
So if I can leave you with one last thought and with the audience with something, we're not wrapping up. We still have some more news to talk about, I think. But engaging the Trump base on an issue-specific level about Julian Assange, I think would be the most effective way to try to get a presidential pardon from him. And as much as a hell pit as it sounds, getting people to go to Julian Assange or to go to Donald Trump rallies and pass out signs for people to hold up and buy T-shirts to give out or get them made locally, and get his base, the people that loved WikiLeaks and loved when Trump talked about it, to get Trump to talk about it again. And that's literally on an issue specific way to engage an audience that doesn't generally get engaged by anyone seeking to actually bring something policy related done. So
Yeah.
I think that that's something super important because he's coming up to Toledo in the next couple days. So I'm trying to coax Taylor into go into it and just see if I can make it up there. But I haven't been home for a while and I got kids that miss me.
Is that the
So
one tomorrow?
I think it's tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna.
really do want to go, but
Yeah.
I gotta see. I should
Look,
make it happen, but I'm a little bit. Well, no, I'll be okay. I was about.
I
To
think that unfortunately Donald Trump has joined the elitist oligarchy, military industrial deep state kind of mentality because he's gotten away from those things. Remember when most of the people, when they go out there and they say build a wall for Trump, well, what's the number one thing leading to immigration? It's our intervention. And nobody puts a finger on that. Nobody says anything to Donald Trump about that. It's he's continuing on the same policies as George Bush and Barack Obama. And unfortunately, I think the majority of the people who do support Donald Trump, the majority of them are blinded by sensationalism, and it's going to be hard to get them to go with anything, especially since it's under his watch that Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning are sitting in a prison cell.
And Jason Burmis did
department that went ahead and filed the extradition charges. Barack Obama that really wanted to do this. Barack Obama looked into it, his administration looked into it, and what they found is that it created something that they called the New York Times problem, in that if you go after the publisher of an outlet, and in Julian Assange's case, a foreign citizen with a media outlet that is not registered in the United States. But if they were to do that, it would set the precedent that they could then go after any publisher of any outlet anytime that they printed something that the government didn't like.
Yeah.
And to the credit of that Justice Department, they did not pursue extradition. To the discredit of that Justice Department, they left the blueprint right on the fucking table.
Yes, they did. A lot of people got to realize that Trump is just continuing Obama's friggin' legacy. Obama had more lawyers in his campaign and his cabinet, than any friggin' president before. And he was always about technicalities and whatnot and finding loopholes. Well, Donald Trump has done the same thing as Barack Obama. You want to talk about all this shit going on right now? Nobody said dick when Barack Obama had the AUMF at his disposal to do what he wanted when he wanted to. So now Trump has it, and guess what? Too bad, so sad. You look like an idiot for just trying to go out for Donald Trump when you allowed your golden child to do whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah, that's the problem when you hold up these politicians like rock stars. Pasta, I know you have to go. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking with you and having you on this vigil. So again, thank you so much. Make sure you guys follow him at Yo Pasta and also follow the Convo Couch at the Convo Couch, I believe, on Twitter. Yep. And do subscribe to their channel and make sure you hit the bell because they live stream quite a bit. And they do a really awesome job, and you need to check them out if you are not.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing action for Assange, hopefully on Rockfin. ROKFIN. Go sign up, guys. You can watch the debates live with us streaming, and you don't have to watch corporate coverage because it makes you get sick. And like I said, we got Johnny Tsunami. He puts up fun stuff. He puts up gifts. Watch the debates with us, guys. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you again so much.
Take care, Pasta.
Combo out, guys. Love you.
All right, guys. That was Craig Pasta Jardula with the Convo Couch. Very interesting discussion tonight. I want to apologize to all of you guys for getting super close to this camera. I don't know why I do that every single vigil, but I have been. I'm sorry. We have some news that we do want to touch on this evening. And yeah, so I will hand it over to my co-hosts. What do you guys want to get into? Oh, Steve's already on it. All right, so we have
Yeah,
here the Council of Europe. Steve, if you want to intro this.
sure. As the website says, they are a platform to promote the protection of journalism and the safety of journalists. Um, what I do like about the way that they set this up, and I can't get my freaking screen. There we go. Make it a little bit better to see. Um, I enjoy how they highlight the source of the threat. In this particular case, the source of the threat is the state. That is normally the case of the threat. Um, Julian Assange, founder and publisher of WikiLeaks, is currently detained in Belmarsh High Security Prison, United Kingdom, pending extradition to the United States. On 11th April 2019, after the government of Ecuador had decided to stop granting him asylum in its London embassy, Assange was arrested by the British police and found guilty that day of breaching the UK Bail Act. On 1st May 2019, he was sentenced to 50 weeks in prison in the United Kingdom, and the government of the United States unsealed an indictment against him. This is what we were just talking about with Pasta, for alleged computer intrusion based on a series of leaks provided by U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning. The charges were extended on 23rd May 2019 to violating the Espionage Act of 1917. It just, I really, I gotta like pause for a moment, because the charges against Julian Assange, specifically the Espionage Act charges, are punishing people who do journalism. Like, that's it. That's the entire basis of it. Which should be ludicrous on its face, but we live in a cartoon. So this is how it happens. Several lawyers, politicians, journalists, and academics consider Assange's arrest in the United Kingdom and prosecution in the United States for publishing leaked documents of public interest and an attack on press freedom and international law. After examining Assange in prison on 9th May 2019, UN Special Rapporteur on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, Nils Melzer, concluded, in addition to physical ailments, Mr. Assange showed all symptoms typical for prolonged exposure to psychological torture, including extreme stress, chronic anxiety, and intense psychological trauma. In a letter sent on 29 October 2019 to the UK government, Melzer wrote, "I have found that the UK had contributed decisively to producing the observed medical symptoms, most notably through its participation over the course of almost a decade in Mr. Assange's arbitrary confinement, his judicial persecution, as well as his sustained and unrestrained public mobbing, intimidation, and defamation. British officials have contributed to Mr. Assange's psychological torture or ill treatment, whether through perpetration or through attempt, complicity, or other forms of participation, recurring and serious violations of Mr. Assange's due process rights by UK authorities have been rendered both his criminal conviction and sentencing for bail violation and the US extradition proceedings inherently arbitrary. The detention regime currently imposed on Mr. Assange appears to be unnecessary, disproportionate, and discriminatory, and to perpetrate his exposure to psychological torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." I would like to kick it over to the panel, because I basically did that with circular breathing and I need to take a minute.
Well, thoughts, guys?
I think this really shows just the extent that the UK government is attacking free speech, and to the extent that the US government is making them do it, because it's just this interconnected circle of them not wanting Julian to expose that our democracies are a joke, and them not wanting Julian to blow holes in propaganda. Because when he was initially silenced by the UK government, or at the direction of the UK government, I believe it was when he had spoken out about the poisoning of a citizen by a Russian agent or something like that. And it was just this whole big propaganda piece. And that's when the UK government really cracked down on him in an even larger extent than keeping him confined and constantly surveilled. So they've just added to this the entire time instead of standing up for what they're supposed to believe in.
Yeah, and I mean, really, this is just what this is saying is kind of the main highlights of the case. A lot of the main Nils Melzer quotes, but I kind of chuckled in a like really sad way, because one of the top headlines in this is "No state reply yet."
So to give credit to people, the president of Mexico and the former president of Brazil have both spoken out in favor of Julian Assange.
Right, but I think this is specifically indicating that the UK, the US, Ecuador, Sweden, the states that are involved have not replied to Nils Melzer. Yes, there are other heads of state that are starting to speak out, and that is an amazing development.
Do you think trying to get other heads of state to speak out and reply
Yes.
to the letter would be important? Because
Yes.
emailing this
Definitely.
to a consulate would be super simple, because I guarantee you none of the people at the consulate level that can pass information to ambassadors would even know that this letter exists.
The president of Mexico kicked this off, and former Brazilian president Lula and the entire Workers' Party, the party that he represented, released a statement demanding the release of Julian Assange.
I would love to.
More of this from foreign heads of state, please.
Yeah, we need I mean, we talk about lobbying and writing politicians, but we need these heads of state to put pressure on specifically the UK and specifically the US to address what is happening. And yeah, if we can get rolling with heads of state, like let's keep it up, because more countries that get on board with this, and then maybe, you know, this is the Council of Europe. You know, there's the the European Council of Human Rights, I believe it is, and then the UN in Europe that are starting. Obviously, the UN has been involved, but we need bigger and bigger heads of state, organizing bodies like this to come out and say, no, this is not right.
Could we get a part of the Unity for J Discord that's dedicated to collecting the email of the consulates and the embassies and the different institutions that we can send information to on a regular basis?
You're sending it directly to the intelligence agencies that way. Every fucking embassy and outpost.
I mean, they already have it anyways. Because I think that would be.
Oh yeah, no, I know, but I mean,
to provide them with like a weekly
the person
newsletter.
you want it to go to more than twice is unlikely in that. But I guess do it anyway. Flood the embassies with it.
Yeah, I mean, just a once a week newsletter about
here real quick too.
Yeah, okay, so there's this program that's hooked up to Twitter messaging as well as Facebook messaging called ResistBot. And you can use it to send faxes, which is the most annoying and guaranteed to be received way to send a message. And you can do it for state officials in the House and state government executive positions and the state Congress, as well as some judiciary positions. And also the same thing for the federal government and a lot of the executive councils too. So just go to, I think it's just facebook.com/resistbot, or on Twitter, search resistbot.
It's www.resist.bot.
Yeah, and it's literally as simple as sending in a message that says what your state is, what your city is, who you want to send it to, and what you want it to say. And it makes the opening for you. It'll remember you next time you talk to it. So all you have to do is say state representative and then type out what you want to tell them. And that would be a really effective tool for things from standing up to Julian for fighting for pipelines, as well as local immigration issues and things like that. So that's a big tool that I feel like can be utilized really, really powerfully, because everyone hates getting the facts and you always hear it come through.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, before I know we have some other pieces of news to get into, but Christy, you got a lot done, and I know you're losing your voice a little bit. You did a lot of things while you were away, and were at different political events. I know you were able to speak about it briefly a little bit, but I would like you to go in more depth if you would like to talk about
Yeah.
maybe your interactions with Tulsi, what she said, and then I know you spoke with another man. I can't remember his name exactly,
Val
but if you could just
Patrick.
talk about that
Well, Patrick, yeah.
with us, that would be really cool.
Yeah, so yeah, I spent the weekend in New Hampshire and then on to DC to do the interview with Andrew and Lee Camp. Um, and while I was in New Hampshire, I did as many actions for Assange as I could humanly possibly do. As I got in Friday afternoon and Friday evening, I went to a Tulsi rally, and I asked her specifically about the OPCW leaks. And then I got to talk to her afterwards, and I invited her to the Washington, D.C. Actions that we were planning on February 24th through the 29th. She seemed very interested and she repeatedly asked for the dates. Um, so hoping to keep following up with her. It would be amazing to have her to come one of those days if she's nearby campaigning. So yeah, Tulsi was very pleasant, very receptive to Julian and talking about him. That was nice, even though I do wish she would speak up more for him. The next day, we did a peaceful protest outside a Mayor Pete rally, which was kind of interesting. Some people were just kind of looking at the posters. We just had a few. Other people talked about Russia. They talked about how he was a creep. They
But
talked
you
about.
got to meet Blue Seal.
I did. I got to meet Lucille.
Oh, nice.
One of my coworkers, because I call them coworkers now, for Unity for Jay. We've been on the Twitter team for almost 2 years together now. I got to meet her in person, and that was amazing. And I got to spend the day with her. So that was really fun to do an Assange action with one of the people I've known, probably one of the people I've known the longest in this movement. And yeah, so it was very interesting interacting with people or not interacting with people, depending on what they were saying. And then we did go inside to the Pete rally, and like I said before, that was very enlightening to me. I had not seen Pete live, and to hear his cadence kind of reminds me of Obama. The things he was saying, the platitudes, the like the pretty words, but not actually talking about anything. Yeah, and then actually seeing the people react to it and like just soak it up and just cheering him on. And I was just like, it was pretty cringeworthy. It was a little uncomfortable, honestly. It didn't stay till the end. We wanted to get an Assange question in there, and Lucille specifically was hoping to get one in, but they kind of did this really weird. They only put questions in a fishbowl, and I'm sure they sorted through them before they actually took them on stage for him to talk, because
And that's specifically because they saw you there with that sign and they said, oh shit, what can we do? Someone get me something to put questions in.
maybe the questions we heard were very softball questions. And Dackerloo has already asked Pete, and that video was quite shocking because of the 400 people that applauded Pete's answer. So yeah, it's kind of interesting because of Dak's work in New Hampshire. We sort of wonder if these candidates kind of know if the Julian Assange people show up, like they don't want to talk
Honestly,
to us.
yeah, honestly, I was
I
wondering, I'm like, I wonder if they talk to
Guaranteed
each other and
no.
they're like, this guy keeps asking this very specific question. Nobody else is asking these questions. I don't think it's far-fetched for them to know about this and be prepared for it. But New
Yeah.
Hampshire is a huge battleground state, and I hate cliches, but it really is. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just really cool
So
you were able to
so the
participate
next
in that.
day, we went to a Deval Patrick house party, and he was one of the candidates that Dak had not asked yet. So I got to ask the question, which was kind of cool to get in on the action for Assange that way. And yeah, Deval Patrick's response, well, it seems like, oh, I don't really know enough about this case. He's a lawyer, and he was the former governor of Massachusetts. Um, this is a decade-long case, and if you're running for president, you don't really have the excuse that I just don't know enough about this. It's very similar to the answer Cory Booker gave Dak earlier last week, which was his was more meandering and all over the place, but it was basically, I don't know enough about this to talk about it. And when the government is going after somebody and wanting to charge them with 175 years for espionage, specifically a publisher and a journalist, I think our candidates should know about it. I think that is a pathetic excuse that the candidates are using. And that's kind of what got us to the conversation of, is this their way of sidestepping it? Is this their way of telling each other, hey, you're going to get asked this question. This guy's going around New Hampshire. Here's how to give a non-answer about it. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting to be the one center stage, so to speak, to ask the question and um, get up and close and personal with the candidates and ask about Julian. And I did have a couple people afterwards kind of pat me on the shoulder and say, hey, good question. So, there's some Julian fans out there that don't typically speak up either. There was, I would say, 15 different questions were asked at that house party, and nobody asked about journalism. Nobody asked about free speech, free press, nothing like that. Um, so yeah, you're always kind of watching to see if maybe somebody else will bring it up too.
So Dak asked Cory Booker again.
Yes, yeah,
Oh wow, what did
he
say?
asked Cory Booker last week. His answer was more or less the same as Deval Patrick's. I think he published that video last week that he didn't really know enough about the case, and he sort of meandered into a 2 or 3 minute long answer. It's very Cory Booker seems a little taken off guard, a little stuttering, and then just sort of does this weird meandering answer and just babbles on and on and on. So you'll have to watch the video because
Yeah.
Cory Booker's one of those guys that doesn't do off script very well, and he
doesn't.
also a Rhodes Scholar, by the way.
That's the other thing is yeah, he's got very planned kind of, I mean, they all have their planned stories and their jokes and whatever, but Cory Booker, I think, is very on script. And yeah, I think to me, he looked a little thrown, that kind of deer in the headlights a little bit.
So if I could ask anyone a question, or if I could ask Tulsi a question, let me rephrase that. Right, when you're talking about on and off script candidates, because I listened to almost all of her town halls.
Regime change wars.
And her favorite story to tell is where she makes the white macadamia nut toffee or whatever her mom makes
that's
it.
The joke. And I
Right.
didn't get a piece of toffee. I had
So I want to
fucking toffee.
I want to ask her, so what part of service before self and country before people allows you to interact with war criminals on a regular basis and not call them out for being bona fide war criminals? Like, why would you send a war criminal toffee would be my question. And
that is such a question you would ask. That is such
right,
a
because it's a question that no one thinks about. Like, you're going to send Nancy Pelosi toffee when she's responsible for collapsing nations so we can steal their oil. I don't want to hear a story about the toffee. I want to hear the C-SPAN clip of you standing on the House floor calling these people out. And it's all there in the public domain. And that's the part that drives me the craziest, is there's just no one to hold them accountable anymore since they chased people like Cynthia McKinney off the stage.
Yeah. Yes. I can't remember what I was going to say. Steve, did you want to?
So I was
Okay.
just going to add that Andrew and I did the interview on Monday, and then I got to go on a White House tour Tuesday, but unfortunately we did not run into anybody else to ask the Julian Assange question, though we were ready for it.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
We
Wait, so you
did
got a
not-
White House tour? That's so cool.
Yeah,
Did you
so
leave wristbands in the White House?
I did not because
Oh,
You probably can't.
yeah, that was yeah, there was no way to do it.
damn it.
I
I'll
have
have to
a
do it one
friend
day.
that works there. I didn't even realize that gave us it's normally a self-guided tour, but he gave us the tour. And so that was really cool and got kind of to talk about a lot of extra stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of agents and a lot of eyes on you as you're going through there. A lot of security going in and out too.
Would you have been able to give the agents wristbands and ask
I don't
them if
think
they know about
they're allowed to
Julian?
take stuff.
I don't think they're allowed to take stuff. And honestly,
no.
I couldn't bring a purse. I couldn't even bring a purse. I was lucky I could bring a wallet. So I didn't, yeah, you couldn't have brought much
That's
in
fair.
with you. It was very, very strict on what you could bring in and couldn't.
Okay.
So yeah, but
That's
it was
really
cool.
cool though.
It was really cool. It was very cool too.
Did you meet Kevin?
Maybe. That was our joke of going to DC is would we meet Kevin, who messes with our stream on the weekly. More to come on Kevin.
Your video on Redacted tonight, as you guys know, we've tweeted about it. I thought it was live on Monday, so I was
Taylor's lagging.
and then I realized that it was pre-recorded. But that is going to be aired tomorrow, right, guys? We will tweet this out, of course. Tease it out so you guys don't want to miss this. It'll be on Redacted Tonight VIP, Christy and Andrew. I'm very excited to see this, and hopefully we'll be able to play it on the vigils as well next week. So yeah, hopefully we will be able to play it next week on the vigils. We'll see about that, but regardless, you don't want to miss it tomorrow, and of course we will be retweeting and teasing it up until it airs. So it is getting late, guys. I see, yeah, it's getting quite late. So we probably do want to wrap it up. For us here on the East Coast, it is going on 1:30 for Andrew and I. And it's just getting late, and it's a Wednesday.
I'm still on East Coast time too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
and
a little tired.
You traveled today, and you still did the vigil, so that's
I
quite.
did. I traveled all morning, and so yeah, I've been up for 21 hours or so.
So we'll wrap it up. I'll be very brief. Thank you guys so much for watching. I thank you so much to People for Assange for these wristbands. I was finally able to get them. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. This war with Iran that we are nearing, I guess. We're on the brink of war right now. It's awful. Please, if there are anti-war protests in your area, do attend them. I went to one. It was amazing. It was amazing to see everybody unite for a single cause. It's a bad reason to have to get there. Yes, brief. Okay, Andrew, thank you so much. Do follow me on Twitter @_Taylor Hudak. I have a tendency to talk quite a bit at the end of the show, so I'm going to wrap it up. And Christy, you're next.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Thank you, Craig. Thank you so much. So grateful that you came on our show.
Yeah, if you check out my Twitter, you can see the videos of me asking Tulsi and Deval Patrick. Dak Rouleau put those out on his YouTube. Another YouTube channel I wanted to promote. I did 4 videos with D. Pierce. His YouTube channel is D. Pierce SSC. I did 4 different topics with him and Dak Rouleau this weekend. 2 of those are out. One is on the DNC debate with Tulsi, and then we did one on the Iran war, and there's 2 more coming out this week, so please look for those. Dak and Pierce do regular videos every week, and they are really enlightening conversations, and I was really honored to be a part of it and get to jump in and talk with them. So please check out Pierce's YouTube page at DPierceSSC, and you can follow me on Twitter @ChristyDoff.
I'm Andrew Smith. You can find me on Twitter @AndrewZigman. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for watching tonight.
If you are just seeing me for the first time, my name is Steve Poikinen. I host a show called Slow News Day, which you can find on the YouTubes by looking up Slow News Day podcast. A lot of thanks to all of you. I love you guys. Thanks to Craig Pasta Jardula, and good luck to us all.